ready. It's time to forge the narrative.
Hey everybody, welcome to Forge the Narrative. My name is Paul Murphy, your host. We are the Bella Lost Souls podcast. This is episode 200 in Blood Angels.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
I can't. What number is that? I'm confused.
I'm
saving my excitement for next week.
Well, this is going to be a good couple of Codex reviews because the Blood Angels specifically, they have a lot of the regular old Space Marine stuff, and I'm using that term loosely, but they get a lot of the Space Marine war gear now that had been previously unavailable to Blood Angels, and that includes things like the Stalkers, the Stormhawk Interceptor. The Primaris stuff is specifically in this book too, which we understand they're getting new kits too that come with the Blood Angel upgrade sprue for the Primaris stuff.
Yep. That is 100% correct.
I'm really looking forward to that. I will say that I know some of you guys have been hot on aggressors for a while, but seeing this book, it's made me have a new appreciation for those. And Chapter Approve has given them a nice little point discount. If I remember correctly, they seem like they're cheaper to me.
They definitely are, and I cannot wait to go into detail about them because I've definitely loved me some aggressors.
I feel like Justin Troop just won some landmark legal battle because it was literally every unit he liked and has been preaching about, for the past few months, has all of a sudden gotten significant point reductions.
Yeah, love it.
He's what is it?
I get more toys.
Yeah, pretty high on the hog right now.
I will say there are a couple of things that are absent from this book. I'm going to get this out of the way. The Jump Pack Priest is something that's not in the Codex.
What a miss.
I feel like the flowchart that tells you how to reference the index is available. I don't think it's not my preferred way to go about.
It's a way. It's not the way.
Yep.
It's a way.
So as long as your environment is okay with you using said flowchart, you should be fine.
And people, you should be. We know the reason that it exists the way that it does. It's not the cleanest way, but not like we don't all have the index. And some of this stuff is minor. Some of it's going to be, more major, but we'll let time progress and see how that goes.
Yep, that's the truth.
But not like there aren't a ton of options in this codex to choose from. All the characters that you know from the Blood Angels are in there.
Even Tycho? Is Tycho there?
Even Tycho is in here.
Tell me, does he have his pimp hand back, or is he more or less the same?
He is more or less the same. And the regular Tycho is in here too. He has the Dead Man's Hand, which is -2 AP 1 damage.
Okay, so that is different than it has been in the past.
He's got it. Tycho's in there. He's a mainstay of the Codex. But I'm more excited about things like Mephiston, an increased number of powers. There's the full range of 6 powers in here. There are Librarian Dreadnoughts, Lamarches, everything. Everyone's still here. Asterath, kind of a favorite. Seth.
Yep, even Seth got some love. Yeah.
Seth can do some work. He reminds me of Ragnar a little bit. Where
is it the big chainsword that gives it away?
Yeah, right. It just seems like they're not like great in like one-on-one combat, but they're super good at just getting in there and just mowing down some bodies that are maybe some hidden unit that's sitting on an objective or something like that, and their point values aren't really that high. So in Character Hammer is kind of what I feel like we've turned to really in this edition lately. He seems like he's a good fit in that role.
Well, some of the characters. Let's talk about several things. First, let me introduce you guys. I got Justin Troop and Chris Morgan.
Oh, yay.
Wings of Fire, baby.
And Ricky Addington.
Let the lion roar.
I think we lost him.
He died. Okay.
It's muted!
And Ricky Addington.
The lesser of two angels is what we're discussing today.
Ooh.
Well, Ricky, why we have Dark Angels and Blood Angels in December, right?
Oh, God.
Red and green power armor.
Yeah. I'll go with it. I'm going to go with it.
I was bracing for impact on that one, too, Ricky.
I can't claim original thought on this one. This was actually sent to me by a friend.
I was like, this is not making it to air, but I'm going to let that one.
Suspiciously just like what I would expect from Games Workshop. What do you think we should do in December? Something red and green.
And angelic. Chris, I literally grabbed the side of my desk, both sides of the desk where the keyboard sits when you started in on that to brace for that. You've got to have it.
That one's for you, buddy.
On this episode, we're going to go over Blood Angels. After we talk about Blood Angels, I'm going to have a spot with David Annandale that Chris Morgan and I did. And then after that, I'm going to have a spot with Carl from the Independent Characters where we talk about using the open war deck and using power level for your army list. So I know you guys, we've been talking a lot about efficiency and points and stuff. Don't worry. Right after this, we're going to have good 2 solid hours of talking about a whole lot of different stuff. And I hope you guys tune in for it.
This is a fresh off the turkey fat episode.
It is. Well, during this time, I know some people have a lot more time. Some people have a lot less time. I want to try to put as much content as we can out there so people can consume it when they are able.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about Gabriel Seth. We have been known to give him a lot of grief.
The coffee mixer at the Lord of War conference meetings.
I think he was, holding Dante's helmet during the Lord of War meetings.
He snuck in. He definitely snuck in there. He was not supposed to be there.
But now he's not too bad. Gabriel Seth hits on a 2+ with weapon skill and shooting, got 4 attacks, and his Lord of the Slaughter rule, bring up the index and let me know if this is any different, but roll a d6 each time a friendly Flesh Terror's unit finishes its move within 6 inches of Gabriel Seth. When it consolidates, on a 6, that unit can immediately fight for a second and final time. He has the Whirlwind of Gore. Each time you roll a hit, roll of a 6+ in the fight phase, inflict 1 additional hit on the target.
Yeah, I love that.
I think Lord of Slaughter is actually a little bit different in the index.
Oh yeah. No, because when you were reading it, it sounded more like Whirlwind of Gore the way it was worded.
Yeah, because Lord of Slaughter is just like a re-roll to hit in the index, but in the Codex they added something to that.
Oh, bring it. What does it say?
It says you can re-roll failed hit rolls for friendly Flesh Tears within 6 inches of Gabriel Seth, and that's it.
No, I said, well, he has the Chapter Master rule now, which is reroll failed hit rolls for friendly Flesh Terror's unit within 6 of Gabriel Seth, and then the Lord of Slaughter.
Slaughter? Yeah, that his Lord of Slaughter rule is the Chapter Master rule in the index. So it is better. It's much better.
Yeah, I'm a fan of this, and with 6 wounds, with a 3+ armor save and a 4+ invulnerable. In this edition, we have also often mocked the Space Marine captains that come with like this awkward war gear with like a power fist and a bolter,
and back when plasma pistols used to be like the ultimate, you're a bad, but you don't really ever shoot it.
Same models now, even on some of the Primaris ones, even like the Store Birthday one that has the power fist and the plasma pistol, you can get away with arming them that way now.
Get away with? That's solid. That's not like you can get away with it. It is good. We were we were just joking. We were picking on one of our newer players in our local area because he actually had to buy some plasma gun bits because he's a newer player. And here we are all laughing.
He doesn't have 40 million.
Yeah, we have boxes. Everybody that's played for at least 2 editions literally has boxes of plasma guns that did not get used because we weren't suicidal. So it's kind of funny to see somebody new rolling in needing to pick up some plasma guns.
Gabriel Seth is 135 points. So I know that the rolling 6s to get the extra fight phase is not something you can bank on, but for that point value for an HQ slot with some pretty heavy combat potential, his weapon, the Blood Reaver, is -2 AP, but it's 3 damage apiece.
Yeah, just a straight 3 damage, and it's ×2 strength.
Yeah, it puts him at strength 8.
Boom,
well,
deity.
Strength 8 is especially good considering the Blood Angels chapter trait.
Let's talk about that for a second, because this is going to help frame the context of what units, when we're talking about maybe how good we think a unit is, the chapter trait is really going to come into play here, because I think it's relevant.
Well, I think it's safe to say that even if you're playing everything index rules, the inclusion of just this trait makes everything in the army better in combat.
You get the Red Thirst for infantry, bikers, and dreadnoughts, other than servitors. I don't know why they can't get fed the Red Thirst protocols, but, fine. I get it. The Red Thirst is in any turn in which a unit with this ability was charged, or made a heroic intervention, you may add 1 to its wound rolls in the fight phase.
Yeah. I like it.
At first, when I heard about this, I wasn't paying attention to the was charged or heroic intervention part, and so I was a little bit like, but think of all the times that you're going to be in combat. You're going to charge. You're going to try and do damage. Someone's going to countercharge you if you
going to
kill.
Fail a charge and then be charged.
Right. But being able to just take advantage of that in the first round of combat, this harkens back to the 30k Blood Angel rule, which Paul, I know you're familiar with. But that is this rule all the time, except it's on the old to wound chart. So perhaps with how forgiving the to wound chart is in 8th edition. I can see
remember, a lot of stuff gets wounded on 5s. This is going to bring it to 4s. And the things that, I don't need to tell you, stuff that was 6s and bring it to 5s. That's kind of a big deal with, you're going to get more attacks through. And so when we're talking about things that do like multiple damage, like the Encarmine broadswords or whatever, that when you're getting D3 damage through, you're more likely to get that through. And you're going to be wounded a lot more often. We're going to talk about Death Company Dreadnoughts, where we're going to talk about the what the actual damage output might be versus with the Lightning Claws versus the Power Fist. Because of that +1 to wound.
Right.
So this is going to help again frame a lot of the context. So I'm glad you brought it up, and that works for even things like Dante, who is swinging at Strength 6, which is no slouch. But remember, you're wounding toughness 4s on 3s.
But now you're wounding them on 2s.
Now you're wounding them on 2s, so you're kind of getting back to the way it was.
Yeah, he feels the same almost, yeah.
Yeah, feels very similar to the way it was in the previous edition, because I can tell you it's kind of like a heartbreaker. And I know this last cannon is not what we're talking about. It's only in the fight phase. But like a last cannon needs a 3 to wound a lot of stuff. And it's a real depressing when you roll the 2 and when you're used to it doing something or whatever.
Right.
So this bit of extra aggression in this rule is going to help the Blood Angels, I think, have a little bit of the teeth that we would like them to have when you're able to get into combat.
Well, and a chapter trait like this also incentivizes you to get out there and get stuck in. Like, this is not doing you any good by sitting back and shooting a gun line.
Yeah, agreed. This is one of the things that's got me interested in the things like aggressors, like we were talking about a few minutes ago.
For sure. Yeah. No, I'm very interested to go over some of the characters and some of the things that they've done in detail, and some of the units here, Paul, because there's a lot of good changes, and there's some things, especially in the stratagems. GW has already previewed a bunch of this stuff for you guys, but some of the stratagems and some of the psychic powers and relics and warlord traits, like just figuring out the combos for those. I wish it wasn't finals week. I'm just going to say that.
Yeah, dude, this is going to be fun to crunch this stuff and get some of these figures on the table. I'm doing a lot of, and actually the finishing moves I want to talk about this week is actually painting red and some of the techniques for painting red. I think we've covered something similar before, but it's worth revisiting again, especially if you're going to be doing a whole army of red guys.
Yeah, well, I'm ready for that.
Corbulo, everything you've come to, again, everything you know about, they are in the book. Corbulo's rule, the far-seeing eye, once per turn, you can reroll a single die roll made for Brother Corbulo. These rerolls that you're able to get and pick up as character traits on things are going to end up saving you command points.
Yeah, I love Corbulo's rule just because whenever you're trying to bring somebody back, or say you're trying to heal a character that's been damaged, just being able to have that reroll is so clutch sometimes.
Remember, if they don't bring back a character, they're like stuck that turn.
Yeah, they can't move or do anything else.
So it's really important to have your fighty things, your buffing things be able to move around with the army.
Does he still have his Red Grail exploding on 6s ability?
The Red Grail. Friendly Blood Angel infantry and biker units increase their strength characteristic by 1 whilst they are within 6 inches of the sanguinary priest. In addition, each time you make a hit roll of a 6+ in the fight phase for a model in a friendly Blood Angels unit that is within 6 inches of Brother Corbulo, that model may immediately make another close combat attack using the same weapon. These bonus attacks cannot themselves generate any additional close combat attacks.
Yeah, so it looks like they incorporated their FAQ into his rule there.
I'm cool with that.
That dude is buffing a lot of units in ways that we haven't seen yet, and comboed with the chapter trait that you were talking about with the bonus to the wound. you're going to see some units, like specifically Reavers, in my opinion, that are going to start being able to dish out so much damage. It's unheard of.
He's 94 points.
Yeah, super cheap.
If I have to walk a Sanguinary Priest, it's always going to be Corbulo.
Yeah, I think that's a sound strategy right there. The regular Sanguinary Priest is 69 points, but that is without war gear.
And what is he just getting?
The same. Yeah, that's the same as it was.
Like, what is he getting that's different from Corbulo?
Well, he's not getting a red grail. He's not getting that.
Okay.
Yeah, he has a grail, so it does a +1 strength buff, but he doesn't have that extra attacks on to hit rolls of 6. And he doesn't get the built-in reroll for one of his own rolls.
Yeah, so I mean, you're talking 20-something points. It's worth it.
I think even if you spend like 5, even if you said that each one of those abilities Corbulo has is 5 points, you're still coming out ahead.
Yeah.
He does have the chain sword that is +1 strength and -1 AP.
Yep, Heaven's Teeth.
Yeah.
What's his warlord trait? Does he have a fixed warlord trait?
He might. We'll see if we can get there.
Okay.
Sanguinary Priest again. We just talked about him. There's librarians. Lamartie's the Death Company. Name character for the Death Company. I think he's good.
Is he the chaplain?
He's the chaplain.
Yeah, he's the chaplain. I use him in almost every game of Index Blood Angel 40k that I play, and he does serious work for me all the time.
Well, his Blood Crozius. His Blood Crozius is +2 strength, -2 AP with D3 damage.
Mm-hmm. So that's the same.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, it's a good weapon for when you're talking about it. And he is 129 points with all his war gear. And this is jump pack. This is buffing the Death Company.
Does he still let them re-roll charge distances?
Yep. You may re-roll failed charge rolls and failed hit rolls in the fight phase for friendly Death Company units within 6 inches.
Yeah, I really like that, and we'll get into that a little bit when we get into some of the stratagems. I have this one combo in mind in particular that I want to pass off by you guys, but we need some setup for it first.
Yeah, I mean, he does. He also has the Black Rage, which allows him to ignore injury on a 6.
And so, yeah, 3+ armor save with a 4+ invul. He's got, 5 wounds? Is that right?
4 wounds.
4 wounds now, okay. So he's got 4 wounds.
5 attacks.
5 attacks.
Nice.
5 attacks is a lot. I mean, most characters have 3 or 4. He's hitting on 2s.
Rerolling because of he's a chaplain and he has the Death Company keyword. And on the charge, he's got 6 attacks because he's got the Death Company keyword. Yeah.
They have the Black Rage. The Black Rage is what actually gives them that, which we can read right now.
Yeah. I don't think that's changed at all from the index, but it's good to point out for those who aren't in the know.
The Black Rage, you can add 1 to this unit's attack characteristics for the duration of the fight phase if it charged in the preceding charge phase. In addition, roll a d6 each time this unit loses a wound. On a 6, the wound is ignored and has no effect. So 6 attacks, that ain't bad.
Does he have a pistol?
He does.
He's got a bolt pistol.
Nice.
The Primaris stuff is in here. There's no Gilliman-like figure in here, but you can kind of cobble him together by using the other characters, including Dante, who has the Chapter Master ability. So the troop section, there's the tac squads, the regular old Space Marine tac squads, the Intercessor squads, and then Scout squads. And you get all the versions of Scouts, bolters, sniper rifles, camo cloaks, and all that stuff. I'd like to kind of talk briefly because it ties into the chapter approved stuff with a lot of the Primaris stuff decreasing. And I'm not actually sure if the Intercessors did decrease in points.
I think they dropped by 2 points a model.
Intercessor is down to 18 points a model now.
Well, what were they currently?
I believe they were 20. Right on the dot.
Okay, so they got a little bit cheaper. And then once you take and this is a bit of an aside, but I think this is relevant because both of these options are in the Blood Angel Codex. And as someone who's anxious to try to craft a list, I start kind of thinking about what are the battlefield roles, what is actually good or not. A Scout squad is base points 11. A camo cloak for a Scout squad, or for a Scout, is, I believe, 3 points.
Yep.
Is that what it is right now?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, camo cloak, 3 points. The sniper rifle is 4 points. So now we're looking at 18 points for a sniper rifle on a Scout with a camo cloak. Camo cloak does give them the plus to their save in cover, essentially giving them, they start with a 4+, giving them a 2+. But a Space Marine in cover also has a 2+.
Yep,
that is correct.
Scouts are awkwardly expensive now.
With the Intercessor squad, now you get the different range of guns that you can put on them, but the bolt rifle is 0 points. That's the stock weapon.
Yeah, that's the 30 inches. Is it rapid fire?
Yeah, it's rapid fire 130, strength 4.
AP-1.
Yeah.
Now, I know you don't get the infiltrate. I know you don't get the ability to snipe characters, but I can see a little bit of conflict in your list choices about what to take now. Is it still better to go with scouts? You know, I don't know if this topic ever made it on the show before, but we were discussing, like, do the fact that scouts exist make these other Marine troop choices less desirable? But with this point change, I think it's back to a question.
Well, you're getting an extra wound out of the intercessor.
It's 10 wounds compared to 5.
It's that. It's also more resilient in assault. With the 3-up save in assault, they all have pistols with them, so that helps a lot too. I mean, your scouts are going to either have the pistol or their chainsword as well, but you
swing more with the intercessor as well.
Yeah, exactly. 2 attacks apiece, 3 from the sergeant. I think it's going to boil down to how you use them, because Troop and I had talked about intercessors and, their viability and everything before, a few months ago when I was building my list. It really depends because, like, he's a big Justin, I think you're still a big fan of the Stalker bolt rifle with the 36-inch range on that thing, right?
Yes, specifically because I was running scouts until I was like, wait a minute. These guys are everything a scout is, but better, minus the sniper rule, of course.
I'm going to disagree with you on that. Like, of course, yes, the sniper rule is great, but I'm going to be honest. Like the games I've been using a 5-man scout squad, I really haven't been taking out characters with them. I mean, it's so just hit or miss, literally hit or miss.
The Stalker bolt rifle does add a couple of points to the equation. You're now taking it to 20 points.
Yeah. But if you're using 6 inches and the damage and everything is different.
I'm just mentioning that for completeness sake in the conversation.
Yeah, and you got to remember that -2 AP on that Stalker, and that is going to do some work. That's going to do when you compare that -2 AP with a scout sniper rifle. A lot of times that's going to even out depending on what you're shooting at. Obviously, not if you're trying to snipe a target.
Well, with things like Malefic Lords becoming more expensive, so there are fewer of them. That'll let me. I'm no comment on whether that's good or bad, but there'll be fewer of them on the table.
Don't forget conscripts,
and then with commissars not being as necessary anymore because conscripts have had their series of adjustments.
I think with these points adjustments and FAQs and stuff coming out, I think Troop's preferred method with Stalker bolt rifles has become much more viable. However, they don't provide you
they're heavy one, though. Heavy one. That's a big difference between a rapid fire or assault weapon.
Right. And what you're going to use those, you park them in the backfield, put them in some cover on a backfield objective, and they are going to sit there and help hold that objective for quite a while. You're going to have to actually commit some firepower to them. You can't just take a throwaway assault unit and, charge them and clean them up. You're actually going to have to commit something to getting them off the objective. The thing, though, that these guys are not going to do for you are to push your opponent back, in the deployment zone because
they're not as aggressive with the infiltrating.
Well, a lot of this stuff is proximity. Like it can't be 9 inches from a unit or whatever. And scouts do help you buffer, just back people up.
Exactly. Scouts give that buffer to give you, an extra turn of
momentum and tempo. It gives you in an assault based army. I think that's going to be a big contributor to the tempo.
Yeah, and so it's really just like where are you planning on using these in your list, but. I personally I play Dark Angels, so there of course Azrael's in there, giving all of my Marines a 4-up invul because I just crowd them up with him, and an intercessor squad with just the normal bolt rifles does some work because that's a 30-inch range, 15-inch rapid fire. So they're shooting 2 strength 4 AP -1 shots at 15 inches. And
what about the assault version? Is an assault 2 rifle at 24 inches. If you're talking an assault heavy list, you're still gaining that +1 to wound. So these guys with the 2 swings, 3 on the sergeant, wounding 1 better. with the assault weapon, so you're not getting the rapid fire negative attack things and stuff like that.
Well, they're not going to stand up to like another heavy assault unit, but it is kind of cool they could like punch down a Land Raider or a Razorback.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Now, do the Intercessor Sergeants still have that rule where they can't take a power sword? They can only take chain swords?
A chain sword, yeah.
Ugh. See, that hurts my soul just a little bit.
I would love for that to change, specifically in the Reavers as well.
Yeah, I think just pick up a power axe that's falling on the table or something.
Yeah.
If the Reavers could get some power, oh man, I'd love to see a power sword in Reavers. Yeah, absolutely. Or just a super duper combat knife, anything on them.
But also at the same time, you're probably not taking. I mean, we're having a conversation about intercessors versus scouts. You're probably not taking a power fist on your scouts either. I mean, you're probably taking Not that I haven't. In the past, even power swords. I think a power sword on a scout was pretty cool back in at certain periods of time in Warhammer.
Yeah, it has its play.
These are unlocking detachments, but you also want some use out of them. And I think that's really the question: is do you limp along with scouts now, or are the intercessors a lot more attractive?
I just, for me, and like my closing point for this specific topic is scouts cost more to run them the way that people have been running them. And I just feel like I'm personally getting more out of running the Reaver or the Intercessors than I am the Scouts now. So I vote Intercessor just due to the durability and some of those extra things. I can care less about the infiltration thing.
And you can take a cheaper Scout too. You can take without the camo cloaks, without the sniper rifle, and then you get cheaper Scouts.
Can you though? Really?
No.
Here's my take on it. I don't feel like I need to choose between the two of them. I'm just thinking I have a battalion with intercessors as the troops and a battalion as scouts for the troops because we're going to need some command points, people. So
yes.
we throw out the scouts just to create that sort of alpha strike bubble to keep things away from the deadly things. Keep your precious things away from deadly alpha strikes or whatever, and just kind of throw them out there. Maybe they'll stick around, maybe they won't. But I think that you could reasonably get away with both.
I don't know where you're finding points for these after you've already got your Death Company dreads and Librarian dreads.
Well,
set of ball
that
predators.
Sounds like a perfect segue into some more units.
Here, some Sanguinary Guard. Now, these guys got less expensive, points-wise.
Thank goodness.
Which in many different ways.
Yeah, which is good. Now, we have, of course, lamented that their Angelus bolt gun was like 70 million points.
It was 9, but yeah, it was more points than a plasma pistol.
It's now 3 points.
Better. So much better.
The Sanguinary Guard, their base body is 20 points.
It used
so
to be
much better.
22.
Now, you still have to buy the sword.
And that's still, 14?
It is a little bit on the expensive side. It's 12 points. The Carmine sword is 12 points.
Okay, that's 2 points cheaper than it was.
Yeah, all around this unit got less expensive.
Or wait, it was 13 before, my mistake. What is the axe at?
16 points, I believe.
Okay, that's the same then.
They were running around at roughly 44, 45 points before these changes?
Yeah, you're paying a lot for a model without a ton of attacks. And they still have the same amount of attacks. They still have 2 attacks, but they have 2 wounds apiece with a 2+ armor save. So, that everything we're all talking about like what the math is, like what's better. Is it better to go Sanguinary Guard or Death Company? I think some of that's going to have to be stratagem wise and maybe what you play against. But a 2+ save with 2 wounds apiece, even on a fairly expensive model that moves 12.
Yep.
You can now reasonably talk about them where I think before you knew you were making a pure vanity choice.
Well, and it's not even that. I mean, some of the other upgrades, like the Inferno pistols, correct me if I'm wrong, but they went down from 20 points to 9 points.
Yes.
And Power Fist also went down from the Index.
The 12 points apiece for Power Fist. And you could put a Power Fist on every single one of them. And that is, I want to say what did we just say the sword was?
The sword is 12.
Yeah. You could replace their swords with Power Fist in a 1-to-1.
And that would be kind of insane. I kind of want to try this now.
An entire unit of Falcon Punchers? I can do it.
Yeah.
The Inferno pistol is 9 points. Yep.
Everything about this unit got better than it was. Now, whether or not that's more point efficient, that's going to depend on a few things. Do they still have their rule where they re-roll to hit rolls when within 6 inches of the Warlord?
Yes, they do. Yep.
Okay. Now, this is my kind of my beef with this rule, right? So, Sanguinary Guard are Dante's bodyguards. What is Dante's buff?
Reroll misses.
Exactly. So, practically speaking and competitively speaking, you're not going to want to choose Dante as your warlord. You're going to want to choose some other character that these guys could potentially hang out with, but still get their rerolls around Dante. Like that seems like a bit of a trip up the steps.
You don't like redundancy? Is that what you're saying?
I don't like useless.
I don't like useless unless it's actual redundancy. But so that they can get the death mass, which is -1 modifier to leadership. Any model may replace its Encarmine sword with an Encarmine axe or a power fist.
Yeah, I think that's good news all around.
Yeah.
Any model may replace the bolt gun with a Inferno pistol or plasma pistol.
Yeah, all good news in terms of where the Sanguinary Guard were and where they are now. I'm very excited to test these guys out. Because, like you were saying, Paul, I think it is going to be, by the time you're done spending points, it's going to be a toss-up between whether you build your list so that your Sanguinary Guard uses stratagems or whether your Death Company uses stratagems.
I think that once you start putting the Sanguinary Guard together, you're looking at about 35 points for a base dude. But it does have 2 wounds and a 2+ save. And a Death Company, you're looking at, with a jump pack, if you just did the bolt pistol and chainsword, you're looking at around 20 points.
Yeah, and the thing that I like about the Sanguinary Guard has to do with the Sanguinary Guard Ancient and his ability to take that banner that gives you a 5-up ignore wounds. It's basically like...
Unless you have the Black Rage.
Unless you got the Black Rage, right? So the Sanguinary Guard Ancient, the banner that already lets you... I think it lets you re-roll to wound rolls of 1 in the index. Let me look that up.
It does. It does right now, too. Or in the Codex as well.
Right. So not
Add
only
1
is
to the leadership and re-roll 1s in the fight phase.
Right. Right. So,
wound rolls of 1.
So you re-roll to wound rolls of 1, and you're probably re-rolling to hit rolls because they're either close to Dante or they're close to the Warlord. And they're doing D3 damage and they're wounding on 1 better than they would have normally, which in most cases would be, depending on whether you're going power fists or swords with a priest or whatever your buffs are, if you're making it work. Like these guys are going to be wounding stuff like Magnus and Mortarion on 4s, re-rolling.
Well, unless they have power fist.
Unless they have power fist.
Toughness 7, they're wounding them on 2s.
On 2s, re-rolling 1s. Like, I think that models like Magnus and Mortarion are going to really not want to be charged by a large unit of these Sanguinary Guard.
Yeah, that's going to be a coin flip of who gets the charge off. I mean, they will be murdered. Unless you charge with them, and then they are dealing out a lot of pain.
Mm-hmm.
Because they
effectively have force weapons.
Yeah. They're all these Encarmine swords are D3 damage. If you do go crazy and take the power fist on them, now you subtract 1 to hit. It's not a fancy power fist, so they'd be hitting on 4s. But if you had a reroll, if they're near the Warlord, reroll and failed hits, wounding things on 2s, wounding lots of things on 2s, with a weapon that is D3 damage with a -3 armor save.
Yep.
Yeah, just play.
I think that there are some dominoes that need to fall in the right order for a lot of that to pull off in the most efficient ways, but that's always been true of Blood Angels in 8th edition.
Well, this only needs 1 unit and the Warlord. So that's actually, where we've talked about needing like 5 characters in the past or whatever. That's not outside of the realm of possibility, I don't think.
Yeah, the investment to build your combo that's versatile enough to get work done is a lot lower than some of the other combos that we are currently running. Yeah.
Yep. I just to be fair, because everybody's expecting us to be super hot on Blood Angels all the time, and let's face it, I mean that's where my heart's at. But that the redundancy. The redundancy on that Dante/Warlord rule is a little disappointing.
Well, it's weird. So, it's a little weird. But remember, Dante is everyone's chapter master, not just the Sanguinary Guard.
It's the truth.
As sad as it is, I think it makes no sense, but Asterath with Sanguinary Guard is stupid awesome with his Massive Doom ability.
Yeah, but that only works on units with the Death Company keyword. That doesn't work on everybody.
Does it? Because it says for each Blood Angels infantry unit. In the index, it says Blood Angels infantry. It doesn't say Massive Doom only works on Death Company.
Massive Doom does affect Blood Angel infantry units within 6 inches of Astaroth.
So on a 2 through 6, those Power Fists are going to be hitting on what? Rerollable 3 up. And, yeah.
Yeah, and is that only a once per battle thing?
That is
still?
a once per battle.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to kill Mortarion or Magnus,
that's all you need.
That's when you use it.
Yeah, with all your Power Fists, because you're getting +1 to hit rolls on a 2 through 5, so all of a sudden that's even better. No, Ricky, good on you for catching that. That's still not my favorite HQ.
Well, think about even
that model. The model is amazing though, so who even cares?
Forgive me for saying this, but even Seth, if you were able to get that unit and then roll the 6 for consolidate, or when they consolidate, fight again.
Oh my gosh, dude! That's what you say the command point for. So it becomes a 1 in 3 chance of that happening. That could completely cripple an army. You got a 1 in 3 chance of completely crippling somebody's army.
And the Sanguiner gives everybody else a +1 attack. So they're swinging a whole lot with those Power Fists.
So, how many points is it after we get all these characters in the same list?
Yeah,
it's all the point.
I know we just said that this combo is character light.
3,724.
Yeah, thanks, Drupa.
So 4K.
Give or take a billion.
Yeah, we're right about there. But I like that we can actually have a conversation about the Sanguinary Guard because those models look so darn cool.
Yeah, and I have a ton of them painted up. It's a shame not to use them.
I know, yeah. My golden host is weeping.
So we're in the elite section now, of course, and I really want to talk about the Death Company Dreadnought.
Oh, this is good.
No, well, the Death Company Dreadnought, remember, it's gone through different power levels. Like, it's been weaker at certain periods of time than the Furioso, and again, it was not the armor 13 like the Furioso or whatever. Now the stats are pretty much the same. Toughness 7, 8 wounds, 4 attacks, leadership 7 if that ever comes up. But it has the Black Rage. So it gets all the benefits because that Black Rage rule is not for infantry. It gets to ignore injury on a 6, gets the +1 attack when it charges. So, putting it up to 5 attacks. Now the option here is the Blood Talons or the Furioso Fist. I think that's the really the thing to talk about. It also is insatiable. That's in the index to whereas a model may move up to 6 inches when consolidating at the end of the fight phase. I think that is underappreciated.
No, I think that's good.
But I think that's going to be a pretty strong ability because there's lots of, when you can do that, the layering in which people space their units in what could be crowded deployment zones changes completely. And if they don't recognize that you can consolidate that 6 inches or just can't get out of the way, physics gets in, doesn't let them get out of the way, then that's going to be a pretty crippling thing with this Dreadnought or with anything that can do this.
Now, what's its movement range on the Death Company Dread?
8-inch movement.
So that by itself is really nice.
So with the Blood Angel special ability, the ability to get wound on 1 better, the Blood Talons, it's +4 strength, putting it at strength 10, neg 2 to AP, 3 damage apiece. The weapon can re-roll failed hit rolls and wound rolls for this weapon.
Ooh, that's different. That's
So
different than it was.
they changed the Blood Talons?
Yeah, because it used to be just D6 damage, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, they used to be Blood Talons were strength times 2.
Well,
AP
you may be
minus
thinking
3
about
D6
Blood
damage.
Fist. They're a Blood Fist.
No, in the we're talking about the Death Company Dreadnought,
Death
correct?
Company.
Yeah, you said Talon just barely before you read that.
No, there's 2 things. There's Talons and Fists.
Okay, so there in the index, there's just Blood Talons and Furioso Fists. So if there's anything else, you're going to have to explain that too.
No, that's it. We got Blood Talons and Furioso Fists.
Okay, so the Blood Talons are strength in the index are strength times 2, AP minus 3, D6 damage, and that changed.
That is changed. Yeah, the Blood Talons are now +4 strength, neg 2 AP, 3 damage apiece.
Love it.
And reroll to hit and to wound?
And to wound, yeah. The Furioso
Love
Fist
it.
is ×2 strength, -3 AP with 3 damage. But
Is there a special rule with it? Is there an ability
if you have
with it?
2 fists, you can reroll failed hit rolls when attacking.
And the Talons, they're 15 points more expensive than the Fists,
The
right?
Talons, yeah, for a pair of Talons, it's 65 points.
Hey, can I just stop us for a second? Hey, whatever rules writer wrote that, and you're listening to the podcast, good work, because
Slow
I'm
flap.
sitting here. I am struggling. You know, like you're like, which one's better? Which one do I take? They are both great, and they're both. It's a tough call, and that's fun when we get
with
units
the blood,
like that.
with the red thirst, with the extra 1 to wound. When you're looking at strength 12 for the Furioso Fist, meaning you're wounding a lot of stuff on 2s anyway.
Normally, yeah.
Now with the blood talons, which coming in at strength 10. With the extra 1 to wound when you charge, I mean, what do you do? I guess you have to kind of consider if you're going to be doing a lot of charging, how many of your fights are going to go to round 2?
Yeah.
No, and it still has its Magna Grapple rule, right?
You have to buy the Magna Grapple, but yeah, you can add 2 to charge a vehicle if you buy the Magna Grapple.
No, this is an important step in that combo I was discussing earlier. So we're getting closer.
Another thing to consider too is the Dreadnought drop pod came back.
Yeah,
much cheaper. What did
drop?
They drop
40
17 points or something?
It was 120 before, I think.
Yeah, like in my opinion, that's why I'm calling it back. It was you don't take it before. It's back now. Like it's a viable option.
It's 80 points now.
What was it before?
Like 120 something.
Yeah, it was 120. Yeah.
Well, I bet
you can't stay in it. You've got to deploy.
Who cares?
And it's got no guns.
Let's get it in boogie. It's not what it used to be for sure.
I can charge though now is the thing.
Yeah, I have a 9-inch charge.
Yeah,
and Troop is again adding one more step to this list combo idea that I have. So good on you, Troop, for reading my mind.
Yes,
with a Magna Grapple coming out of a drop pod with a Magna Grapple on a Death Company Dreadnought. Can't they reroll with Black Rage or something?
No, if Lamartie's is close by,
Lamartie's is there. So that would give you a 9-inch, essentially a
7-inch.
A 7-inch with the reroll.
On a vehicle, specifically on a vehicle.
On a vehicle, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But either way, I mean, that's getting you there to blow up your fire prisms that are we're bound to see and all these other things.
Technically, you could also declare on the vehicle.
And do a little scoot and boogie to the unit itself, too.
Well, okay. Well, I shouldn't say target, because the Magna Grapple says if a model with a Magna Grapple only targets a single vehicle unit in the charge phase, add 2 to his charge roll.
Oh, okay. They changed it.
Ooh, they got us.
Again, GW rules writer. Good job.
You guys are learning.
I feel like they're finally connecting with their player base.
You could have left that one out.
For the Blood Angels. You're going to kill that vehicle. At least I hope you are. And then with your 6-inch consolidate, you're going to get some other units.
Yeah, I think that the Dreadnought thing. I love the fact that the pods they're viable. And these awesome rules specifically on the Dreadnought for the Death Company. I'm not so hot on the Librarian, and I'm anxious to see your opinions on it when it comes in. But yeah, I think this is going to be fun.
The Librarian Dread is 172 points. I'm in love with it.
Really? Is
that with upgrades?
I mean, that's a fist and a halberd.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't need anything else.
I got a buddy ready to build Blood Angels, Paul, just so he can put a Librarian Dreadnought on the table and give it Wings of Sanguinius or whatever, and charge a flyer.
Before we get too off topic, while you guys were talking about this whole charge a vehicle, consolidate and something else, maybe that's your play. Maybe that determines what fist you take, what weapons you take, because you're going to be locked in combat where nobody charged. And so
I'll one up you, Paul Murphy. I'm taking one of each.
Maybe the fist are better. You can't do that.
No, I mean I'm taking one Dreadnought with fist and one with quads.
Yeah. Aesthetically, I'm not mixing on a single vehicle. No, it's getting both.
So
I'm putting one fist and then one each. So then I think
the fist are the way to go. There.
I will give you a lot of drink, and when you go to the bathroom, I will just push it off table.
And the beauty of the Furioso kit is that you don't have to choose if you equip it permanently with either one. It comes with the attachments to make both the Blood Talons and the Furioso Fist.
Good.
That's a great kit too. I mean, it's old and it's holding up.
Oh, it's incredibly versatile.
Oh, and you can have 2 heavy flamers on this thing too.
He's just so angry.
No,
I want it.
The model may replace its Stormbolter and or Melt-A-Gun with a heavy flamer.
Boom diggity. This is like the don't charge me, but I'm charging you like
or the please charge me nightmare.
Well,
it's like come at me, bro.
So the Death Company Dreadnought is 90 points base. A pair of Furioso Fists is 50. The Meltagun is 17, same like it is. Another thing is Stormbolter's 2 points. This thing's coming in at 159 points.
Now, it's worth noting that it dropped in base points cost by 38 points from the index.
Goodness.
Huge. Love it. Take 2.
Yeah, I think 2 is we're at 2 for 318 points.
Yeah, this is your doctor speaking. Take 2 and call me in the morning.
Gosh, I almost say just right out of the gate, add 80 points to each of them and give them the drop pod.
I don't know that you need it, though.
You don't think? I mean,
we don't need it, but you want it.
8 points.
Yeah.
No, I think it's all going to depend on your strategy. If you're looking for that out of nowhere alpha strike, where you're dropping in a bunch of dudes with jump packs and you want to have the Dreadnought up wherever you want to put them, that 80 points might be worth it for you. But if you're doing what I think Paul is insinuating you do, is you just walk them across the table angrily.
Well, these guys are not characters, and that's one of the things about the Librarian Dreadnought is it is a character.
And less than 10 wounds.
Yeah,
you can hide him.
You can't pick him out without the sniper rule.
Yeah, these things, here's the thing. If these guys are walking, you can count on one thing. Old Ricky's going to be shooting at them turn 1 and 2.
Well, that's you either need that to be factored into your play, and this kind of comes down into what specialty assault unit do you take. And the Death Company with the jump packs, they're also intimidating.
Now, I still have some reservations about them in comparison to like point costs with Berserkers and the kill potential of Berserkers, but I think if I'm also being fair on the other way, the mobility of the Death Company is greater, and the straight up
not much greater when you talk about all the fight phases and consolidates.
Well, what I mean by that is you can put jump packs on them for one, and two, there's that stratagem that lets you just pick them up and put them anywhere, even if they're in combat with somebody.
And there's one that lets you jump them. You actually get to make a move roll before the game starts.
Yeah, it's like a move in advance free before the game starts.
So that's a stratagem we'll talk about here in a minute. So this is what's going into. There's the Sanguinary Guard versus the Death Company. It's actually a choice, which is fun. And
I doubt you're going to get both in the same list. Like not have enough command points to use them both to their full potential, but that's,
With cheaper Power Fist, like a 9-man unit of Death Company with 3 Power Fist is something like 216 points or something close to that.
Not bad at all.
And that is, that's with jump packs, so moving 12 or being able to deep strike assault, or there's play there. But they do have the Black Rage, which is we've talked about the ignore injury, but it's only a 3+ save, 1 wound apiece.
Yep, the 6-up ignore wound just. Paul, you remember when that was a 4+? Because I do, and I just kind of it makes me sad that's
the original reason for the nerf of Feel No Pain was Death Company. It went to a 5+ because of Death Company, and now they are rocking an even worse version.
Yep. Meanwhile, Poxwalkers are like,
so the Terminators and stuff you get all the variants of Terminators. So you get both Heresy versions of the Terminators and the regular Assault and Shooty versions of the Terminators.
And an Ancient.
Yep. You don't get Centurions in here. That's kind of like the one big notable exception.
I don't miss them.
Of things, I'd love some Red Centurions. Gonna have to fill that fix with the Aggressors we were just talking about.
Yeah, I think the Aggressors are gonna scratch that itch pretty well, and they look better. So.
Oh yeah.
The Reavers are in here, and I think Blood Angel Reavers with the +1 ability, the +1 to wound.
That will do some work.
Because they've still got the grab.
I have
shoots.
A box of Reavers.
Weavers.
I have a box of Weavers.
Hey, listen to me. You are going to just for any of y'all who are new to Reavers, I learned this at the exact wrong time, which is like 3 days before Warzone Atlanta. But those things take a while to assemble.
Yeah.
I put together a 10-man squad of those.
There's some easy build ones out there, Ricky.
Oh my gosh!
But if you multiply that box by X amount, you're gonna get bored quick.
It was a lot. It was like 4 episodes of the Great British Baking Show that took. It was a lot.
They're deceptive, yeah. And then kind of like what is it? The Death Watch. Like if you want to like really adorn them up with all the little bits and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh god, it gets crazy.
What kind of masochist does that?
Hey,
I have no grenades on my
Blood
Reavers.
Angel masochist. That's who.
I had a whole little pile of all the grenade harnesses and everything, and I was like, we don't have time for this, Ricky.
Yeah. Don't worry, Ricky. You'll never have time for those.
I do like about the Reavers, they're 2 attacks apiece. Yeah,
they're so good. Yeah,
and 2 wounds apiece.
2 wounds apiece.
Yeah.
Their heavy bolt pistol is -1 AP.
That's what I like.
These guys do so much work. Like if you put them in somebody's backfield and they annoy the crap out of things.
Now, do they count as jump infantry with those backpack dealies of theirs?
No,
They just get to do the deep strike. Other than that,
It's the
that's
grab shoots, but they do
Yeah,
get the
the
shock
grab
grenade. This weapon does not inflict any damage. If an enemy infantry unit is hit by any shock grenades, it is stunned until the end of the turn. It cannot fire Overwatch, and your opponent must subtract 1 from any hit rolls made for the unit.
Screw you, Tau.
It's
The
only
range
6
on
inch
it.
range, though.
Yeah. So that's I don't think I used them. I think I used them once at Warzone. So in five games, I think I used the grenades once because I had grab shoots on them, so they were dropping in at 9 inches.
Right. And how often are you within 6 inches ready to charge anyway? In a unit that doesn't move 12 inches. So
Yeah.
When you get the opportunity to use them, they're great.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of some potential, and I mean you're never going to set it up because of the 6 inch range, but the potential to open up the way for one of your other Premier Assault units.
I don't know, man.
Yep.
These are the Premier Assault units in my eye.
I think that they can fill both roles in that respect.
Yeah. I think
I'm very
with
excited
the
to try
Red
them
Thirst. Yeah, the Red Thirst makes them, I think, extremely viable. I think Reavers have a place in Blood Angels. I'm not 100% sold on them in my Dark Angels list that I've been running because I felt like they just kind of lacked. I roll a lot of dice with them, but I felt like they lacked the real punch that they needed. And the Red Thirst is going to give a Blood Angels army that real kick. So I think Reavers definitely have a place in there. And also, how to word this, like the grappling gun thing,
The grapple hook.
Yeah.
the
Batman hook.
Yeah, you don't think about that. Like, when you look at that, you're like, well, do I take it? Do I not? Think about like the games you've played where somebody's been up high on some terrain or something, and just how amazing it would be
straight up ignore
when you ignore that. So you can come in 9 inches away from somebody because they're above you, and then you use your grappling hook and make a 2-inch charge. So there is some value in that grappling hook, especially if you play in an area where the tables have a lot of tall terrain.
That's interesting.
Yeah, with all
I think that flies. I think that works.
It does
Yep.
work. No, it works.
It's a great looking bit too. So
it looks cool. Yeah, but just be that one bit that's actually firing.
I can't see myself putting that on there.
That is never going anywhere. Put that on. Put that in your case. Yeah, but
I broke it when I took it off the sprue.
I looked at it. And I'm like,
it's not making it.
Nope. So I just I passed on that one.
The Furioso Dreadnought is your shooting version of that body here in the book now, because it can come. You can put the frag cannon on it.
Now, how expensive is the frag cannon?
Let me read the stats first. It's Assault 2d6, Strength 6, -1 AP, 1 damage, but it automatically hits the target. And the frag cannon is 38 points.
Ooh, yeah, that went up by double.
Furioso Dreadnought is 80 points base also.
Okay, so that went down. That went down 42 points.
Yeah, I still don't know if I'm going to take a Furioso in place of a Death Company Dreadnought. And let's not also forget about smoke launchers. We didn't mention on the Death Company before, but, subtracting 1 from all hit rolls from ranged weapons on the target vehicle. Not insignificant
method,
if you plan on charging up the table.
And if you don't want to pay for a Magna Grapple.
True. Yeah, because it replaces
the
smoke
Magna
launchers,
Grapple replaces the smoke launers.
Yeah.
So what is the key difference then between the Furioso Dreadnought? Because, the Furioso in the past, it was always, the front armor 13 version, right?
Yeah, the Furioso does not have Black Rage, obviously, and it just has shooting options.
Same number of wounds, same toughness.
8 wounds, toughness 7, 3+ armor save, 4 attacks.
It doesn't have that venerable thing or anything like that?
It doesn't.
Yep.
Wow.
So, the points discount is nice, but
Death Company. Just take Death Company.
It doesn't move as far. It's not as scary.
No, it moves as far. It's 8-inch move.
Oh, it's also an 8-inch move? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are all treads 8?
No, most are 6.
Are they?
Regular.
Somebody check that.
The frag cannon, I don't know, you said, 38 points, something like that?
Mm-hmm.
It seems...
And over, you still got to buy the Blood Fist, too. So you're buying the frag cannon for 38 points, a 45 point or whatever.
Well, don't forget the twin assault cannons went up to 44 points. So
that changes the Ball Predator to be 164 points with heavy bolters. And the twin wings. It's only 2 points more expensive overall, though.
I'm trying to find some from some other Dreadnoughts here.
Yeah, the Dreadnought in the Space Marine Codex is a 6-inch move.
Oh, okay.
These long-legged dreads. I was trying to describe. I forget who I was, but I was trying to describe what a Dreadnought is. It might have been to one of my boys, and I was like, it's like an angry washing machine.
I would have called it a walking tombstone, but
yeah, but you guys probably all experienced like a washing machine that's slightly off level that you overload.
Experience. Do that for fun.
It just rattles itself, across the room.
What you do if you don't want to stay married is you like get your like shoes, your like gym shoes or whatever that you washed, and wait till you're about to walk out the door, and you throw them in there and just put it in the dryer, and while your wife's still home, and then just run. She doesn't like that.
Without your shoes?
Well, I've got other shoes, Chris. Unlike you, I have more than one pair of shoes.
I wanted to make sure.
All Blood Angels Dreadnoughts, 8-inch.
Angry washing machines.
Angrier washing machines.
Angry, longer-legged wash. You do get the Redemptor Dreadnought, so if you're anxious to use that kit, you can paint it red. 13 wounds.
Yep, you could anyways, but rules for it in the box.
Double excuse.
Yep. It's official.
I love Redemptor Dreads.
I believe the assault squads are the same.
Yeah. Same points and all that.
And they're fast attack. They are not troops. There's no way to make them troops or anything like that in the book here.
Shed a single tear.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't even know if I would probably take them. I think that would take them if they were troops.
I would definitely take them over scouts.
So as someone who owns an embarrassment of assault marines.
Yep, that is the actual term of measurement, an embarrassment.
In my opinion, with the Outrider Squadron thing, it doesn't even matter. You can, if you want to take all of them and that's it, you have the option to do it.
Yeah, that's true.
You just get fewer command points to play with for the trouble.
Well,
that matters. Now, we're going to talk in a minute about some of the stratagems and stuff because it does matter. Space Marines in general, unless you've got a character that buffs command points, and the Blood Angels do not, then you're going to be looking at that 6-7 command point total. I mean, like as what's got to last you through the whole game.
Dante? Dante doesn't give you guys some extra? He doesn't. I mean, Marneus Calgar gives them. Marneus
Calgar probably needed them from Dante.
Azrael Gate, he gets some. Doesn't the space?
Dante's too busy chopping people in half with his axe. He gives all the orders before the combat starts, and then he has a job to do. Ricky,
what you're supposed to say is Dante's guys don't mess up. They don't need them.
It's just it's Space Marines on hard mode.
I just want to say I'm pretty sure that Azrael, after all these last few editions, he's probably developed claustrophobia from all the people crowding in on him.
Oh yeah. He's definitely got no sense of personal space anymore.
I believe that the Inceptors dropped in points.
They did 20 points a body, I believe.
Oh god, don't even like. Did they drop a little bit? No, they dropped insane amount. A metric,
40% cheaper.
So the Inceptors models are 25 points a piece now, just for the base model.
Down from 45. That is good.
And the Plasma Exterminator, with its 18-inch range, so plenty of room in these bodies that are already jumping. The Plasma Exterminator. Pardon me a second. The Plasma Exterminator is 17 points apiece.
That is bargain basement. Everyone go buy.
You got to buy 2 of them. If you want to replace the bolters, you got to get the plasma. You got to buy. So that's 36. What is that? 34 points.
Yep.
And then plus the actual model itself.
So you're looking at close to 160 points. I'm just doing that in my head. But 160 points.
You do get, the ability to supercharge with strength 8. Neg 3 armor save, 2 damage apiece.
So good.
18 assault D3 per weapon. So that is a potential of 6 shots per dude.
And the thing is, they're highly mobile, so they're moving around the table.
10-inch movement. I don't know that I would supercharge them without
a captain.
No,
I definitely have a jump pad
shots,
captain.
I'd say I've already killed 2 of my Marines.
Yep.
He speaks the truth.
But the assault bolters aren't bad either. Strength 5, -1 AP, assault 3. I mean, just guarantee 3 shots from each one.
What are you in the mood to hunt?
Yeah.
You pick the plasma if you know you're going to hunt some big stuff. If you know you're just going around to harass and kill objective holders, take the bolt guns and you're good to go.
As happy as I am about the plasma coming down to reasonable levels, I still think I like the bolt guns because of what I'm going to use those for. Is like Troop said, I'm wanting to bring those in and harass units, move units off objectives, hit flanks of.
You want to grab a relic. You want to. I mean, you're using this for mobility. Now the Blood Angels have different options for that. But if you're a regular Space Marine player or a Dark Angels player, I don't know who does that, but the point cost, the point drop on these guys makes anything that gets that much of a point discount needs your attention. You need to look at it and decide 100%. If there's.
How I do? I didn't even know that they got a points decrease. One of my local buddies posted up a list in our local forum and our Facebook, and he said, "Hey, can everybody take a look at this list for me?" And it was like all Inceptors. I was like, what happened? What happened? Why are you looking at these all of a sudden? And that's when I was like,
why did you just scavenge every Dark Imperium Inceptor in the state?
We call that the Inception.
Yeah.
They're a fun unit that was just a little overcosted before. Now they're a fun unit that is priced, in my opinion, just perfectly to play them competitively. Mm-hmm. And now you get to have fun, exciting, engaging games with more toys and more boys on the table than ever before.
Well, let me tell you how awesome they look with red armor and yellow helmets.
Dude, that is, and here's the thing, they were so poorly priced that I will bet you half of our listeners have never even picked one up and looked at it because we are more of a competitive mindset.
Well,
so we're looking
this model, even like people that saw the picture of it, when you actually hold it in your hand, it looks a lot better. I mean, it does, and I'm telling you, they look especially good with yellow helmets and red armor.
Nah, I mean they look better in green, but the point is, like, I was putting them together and
green with envy.
There's so much detail. I hate you, Chris. But they're great models, man. They're great, and the thing is, we're gonna be able to put them on the table and enjoy them instead of just having them sit there still in our Dark Imperium starter box, because nobody was using them.
We talked about the Ball Predator, like overall point cost. I want to say that it was 162 total before, with 2 heavy bolters and a twin-linked assault cannon. Now it's 164. So the twin-linked assault cannon has gone up a bit. But when you think of it now as that kill shot exists now in this book as a stratagem, it's for a Blood Angel specific stratagem, you don't have to take a Space Marine character to unlock it anymore. Kill shot on a Ball Predator, I think that's pretty good.
That definitely makes the points increase on the assault cannon much more palatable because that's
your heavy 12.
A lot of shots.
You need something to get your vibe, your ability to hit up a little bit, so you get more of those through. But then you're wounding on 1 better, so you're already strength 6. So you're wounding lots of stuff on 2s. Some of the bigger stuff you're wounding on 4s, which is not terrible with 12 shots apiece. And then it's 2 damage apiece. So when you do get through, you're connecting a lot heavier for the low cost of 1 command point and having to have 3 Ball Predators.
Yep, that's a list of demands. We do not negotiate with points terrorists.
That with a Death Company Dreadnought walking right in front of it, I don't know what I'm going to shoot at. So it's there's so many threats coming out of this book. I think I'm trying to figure out how to squeeze everything in there. I think points are really going to limit what you can do. But
when you start taking all the toys, I mean, it really does. You're going to have to be disciplined when you're making a competitive list. But as far as like one of the strengths of the Blood Angel army has always been the way it aesthetically looks on the table, like all the different armor colors and helmet configurations and the slight and the icons and stuff. It's going to look good.
Yeah,
but you could take all the toys and have fun playing.
Yeah, I'm just hoping I have the points to fit everything in there because, like, in my mind, this Blood Angels army is 3 Ball Predators, 3 Death Company Dreadnoughts in drop pods,
and 12 characters.
Yeah, I don't even need 12. I think you could probably 3, just a 3 HQs, and you're cooking.
I put together just a quick list. This is just like, okay, these look exciting. Let's throw them on a paper and see what happens. Librarian Dread, 2 Death Company Dreads, and Death Company in a Vanguard detachment. And then going down to a battalion, taking Lamartes and Mephiston, 2 units of Aggressors, 3 units of Intercessors.
And I don't know why we haven't talked about Mephiston yet. Like,
I was literally just thinking, I was thinking,
because we're going to get to the psychic powers in a minute. I thought it'd be best to talk about the librarians when we get to the psychic power stuff.
Right.
I just assumed you voted.
I got restless leg over here.
I thought it was going to be a very special episode.
It's a 9 Death Company and then 3 Ball Predators. But I don't know that with all the other attractive stuff in the list that you need the Ball. I think that Blood Angels before the Index had to have Ball Predators or you weren't going to do anything.
I literally never used Ball Predators in the Index.
Well,
I tried them out. I liked them. Yeah, I thought they were a great addition.
Yeah, everything else was just kind of awkwardly pointed. The Ball, for being 162 and having all that firepower, it was really good. Or 160-ish. I think it's 162. Now, there, in my opinion, a lot more. I mean, there's triple the amount of viable options in this book if you're just looking for efficiency and synergy. There's some of these things with their innate rerolls or maybe the ability to pop a stratagem off, you're less clunky with having to spread all these characters around. There's going to be a little bit less. I know what I just described, having Lamartes, Mephiston, and Librarian Dreadnought, goes against everything in what I said, but I just like playing with all that stuff. I'm saying that one does not have to do that.
You don't have to, but I'm gonna.
But I happen to like it.
It's because you do it because you want to, not because you have to.
Yeah. So we've kind of hinted at some of the stratagems before, and one of the ones that I think is very that's going to make an impact is the Forlorn Fury. This is a 2 command point stratagem, and you use the stratagem at the start of the first battle round, but before the first turn has begun. You can immediately move one of your Death Company infantry units and can even advance as if it were your movement phase. You can only use this stratagem once.
Man, I wish you could use it more than once. But
for multiple Death Company units, or move this thing 3 times.
Yeah. No big deal. That seems totally fair. Yeah.
Well, moving 12, you're already, if you're going first, you're going to move, that's 24 inches you move, plus the advance. So that's, 24, 30 something inches you're moving.
How big can you make a Death Company unit?
15.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that could be fun.
Guess who's got 30 Death Company?
With that range of board coverage, with a 15-man unit, that's a lot of.
No, and that's one of the things I think Blood Angels are going to do super well. And I did a guest spot on the Splintermind podcast talking about this. Is just in terms of a mobile Marine army, you're going to be hard pressed to find something that can keep up with Blood Angels. It's just in terms of getting around the table, jumping here and there, getting up in your face, like. They need to be the best at that to be Blood Angels, in my opinion. I think that they're doing okay with it with this book.
There's the Auspex scan that lets you shoot things that show up within 12 inches, but that's 2 command points. That's, and again, whenever I see 2 command points, it's got to be like a guaranteed something just works. And I don't know that I would want to burn the 2 command points to shoot unless I'm loaded up on those Inceptors with all the plasma and stuff.
But this is what I know, Paul Murphy. Chainswords save bullets.
Yes. Yes, they do.
Is that every unit within range of that unit, or is it just once you pick one unit?
Yeah.
Okay.
One of your Blood Angel infantry units.
Gotcha. Got to be infantry. Okay.
So the Death Visions of Sanguinus.
Okay, this is the final piece of that combo I'm thinking of, so please continue.
Use this stratagem when mustering your army, building your army. Select a Blood Angels captain, chaplain, or lieutenant from your army other than Primaris models and name characters, such as Commander Dante. The model gains the Death Company keyword and the Black Rage ability for the duration of the battle.
Yep.
That's 1 command point.
Yep. So worth it.
The 6+ feel no pain. I mean, why are you saying this is worth it?
Okay, there's a couple of reasons. So first off, there is a warlord trait that lets you increase that 6 up to a 5 up and reroll 1s. So that's not terrible in and of itself. Also, you put that on like a Blood Angel captain, run him next to Lamarty's and a bunch of Death Company and a Death Company Dreadnought in a Dreadnought drop pod. Drop them down somewhere, and you are going to eat alive somebody's flank. And you've got this captain, and there's a couple other relics, there's a couple other things that you can do to really beef this guy out. Like there's one relic there's one other warlord trait you could pick that gives your weapon an extra damage point. So you could put a Thunderhammer on this guy, and all of a sudden he's got a damage 4 Thunderhammer.
That's not bad at all. That's a long way to go, but I see where you're going.
So you could really stack a bunch of crazy buffs on this dude, and I want to just throw a shout out to Reese a little bit, who was talking about this on the Signals from the Frontline, where if you throw that captain at, say, like a Baneblade, or insert giant model here with the Thunderhammer that does 4 damage, and he's got, like, 5 attacks on the charge with the Black Rage keyword?
That's true.
He could do potentially 16 damage, 16 to 20 damage with that Thunderhammer all by himself in one round of combat.
That's worth looking at.
That is a crazy amount of damage for one dude to be throwing around. And I really like the idea.
Something on a vehicle, that's feasible.
Yeah.
I mean, that's even going to get a significant amount through on things like a Mortarion.
Mm-hmm. Even if if you don't finish him off the first time, there's that stratagem. It's a 2 command point stratagem that lets you fight again.
Well, there's also the only in death does duty in, so you could burn like 11 command points on this guy, and he's killing something.
Yep, definitely. This is why I was saying we need lots of command points.
Yeah, there's that's a heavy investment, but I do think that a minimalistic side to that is not bad, especially for the extra attack on the charge and the 6+ feel no pain.
Yeah, I think that there's some play there, and I like the idea of creating this beat stick captain who can roll around with the Death Company. He comes down with a jump pack or however you're going to get him there. He gets to reroll his charge distance right next to Lamarty's.
With all the war gear you put on him, he has to ride in a Dreadnought drop pod. I'm not even really giving you a hard time. The guy sounds amazing. He's going in this list with Mephiston and Lamarty's.
Well, and that's the other thing. We'll get to Mephiston later, but I like the idea of having a big squad of Death Company, a Death Company Dreadnought in a pod, Lamarty's, and this guy all coming down at the same time and wrecking face on something. And with the stratagems, one of those units for sure, if not most of them, are going to connect.
On Wings of Fire is another really good one. This is on the Warhammer community site too. It says use this stratagem in your movement phase before moving a Blood Angel jump pack unit. Remove the unit from the battlefield and set it up at the end of the phase anywhere on the battlefield that is more than 9 inches away from any enemy model. So you can move, you take them out of combat. This is like you could hit and run them. That's one thing you could do with it.
If they're locked in, you can pull them out.
You could you could just throw a unit all the way across the table as to claim an objective or to put people in range of these plasma guns we keep talking about. This is any Blood Angel jump pack unit for 1 command point.
Yeah, I think that's totally worth it.
I like the idea of being able to get the old school hit and run, even if you pay the heavy price for it, the CP, the copper penny price. For this, because it could we were talking earlier about establishing the momentum for an assault-based army, and this is one of those things that kind of breaks it open and keeps you in the driver's seat, even if things may be going a little bit south for you.
Yep. I like the idea.
There is a Lucifer pattern engines. This is a stratagem before advancing with a Blood Angel's vehicle other than a Dreadnought. That's important. Or a vehicle that can fly. Also important. Increase its move characteristic by 6 inches, or D6 plus 6 if it's a ball predator, until the end of the phase. Do not roll a dice.
Now, the wording on this one needs a little bit of revision, just because I feel like that's meant to replace an advance or to just guarantee an advance. But it says you do it before you advance.
Before advancing, yeah. It says increase the move characteristic.
Right. So the way I'm reading that, it doesn't count as advancing if you use the stratagem. if you're looking at rules as written.
Yeah, it just says increase the move characteristic, not add to the movement or add to the advance.
So now you've got the 12-inch standard move on a ball predator. Increase that to 18 inches and then add D6 to that. And then it can still shoot at you. We may actually get a flamestorm cannon in range to kill something, guys.
Nah, what you may get is an FAQ real quick. That's probably what you may get.
Coming on the heels. Well, okay. Descent of Angels. This is a big one. Use this stratagem before making a charge roll with a Blood Angel jump pack unit from your army that was set up on the battlefield earlier this turn. Roll 3d6 to determine the unit's charge distance instead of 2d6.
That's what I mean when I say something is going to connect.
And that is 2 command points. I mean, again, you're looking... We've already spent all of our command points.
Yep. And a few from the next game.
But that's okay if it puts you in a great position to win the game. Like, don't be afraid to do that. In any army, not just Blood Angels. Like, burn them.
Yeah.
Burn them to help gain leverage and momentum in the games.
Definitely.
But I think that Descent of Angels is incredibly powerful. And you're going to be deep striking in people anyway. That 3d6, I mean, we see it with Avasaurs and stuff right now. It's going to get you in combat a lot more often.
Yeah.
And if it's a Death Company with Lamarties and you get to reroll
3d6. Yeah. No, it would take a preposterous amount of Paul Murphy charge distance rolls, in a row.
It's very possible
to fail.
Yeah.
So
the Red Rampage adds D3 to the attack characteristics for a Blood Angel character.
Yeah, that's a old warlord trait.
It's 1 command point. I don't see myself doing that, but at the same time, I kind of like knowing that it's there. This is one of those times when having like the flashcards or the data cards with you, because you could probably easily forget that one. But when you see it when you're flipping through them.
I want to see that on Mr. Smashface Captain or Mephiston.
Yeah. Here's the Vengeance for Sanguinus. Use the stratagem when a Blood Angel unit from your army is chosen to attack in any fight phase. Each time you roll a hit roll of a 6, the model of the unit during this phase, it can, if it was targeting a Heretic Astartes unit, immediately make an extra attack against the same unit using the same weapon. Against a Chaos, not bad. If it's against Black Legion, you generate an extra attack on a 4+.
Oh, yeah. Where are my Black Legion players at?
I mean, I don't see any reason to use it if you're... Black Legion's real strong right now, man.
Chirp.
Black Legion.
All I see is Alpha Legion dressed as Black Legion.
Black Legion, Abaddon with Obliterators.
I'm not saying don't bring them. It only works better for me if you do.
It is good. The Warlord traits. You asked me a question earlier about Mephiston's Warlord trait. He's got a pretty good one. He's got the speed of the Primarch. You can always choose your Warlord to fight first in the fight phase, even if he didn't charge. If the enemy has units that have charged or that have similar ability, then alternate choosing units to fight with, starting with the player whose turn is taking place.
I love it.
Yeah. Dante's, on the other hand, is a little bit underwhelming with the heroic bearing. Friendly Blood Angel units automatically pass morale test while they are within 6 inches of your Warlord.
That was the leadership thing I was talking to you about earlier.
Well, it's a Warlord trait.
Okay.
And it's not awesome.
Yeah, well,
if you're taking a 15-man death company, that ain't that bad.
Well, when you're saving Sanguinary Guard too, that are 35 points apiece, that's
a bajillion points a model, and you fail that leadership by 1, it's going to sting a little. So,
and I, with it being on a really aggressive and powerful character, he's going to be in the thick of it, and so that could actually come into play more often than I'm assuming that it will.
Yeah,
it's just not as killy and exciting as always swings first with a strength 10 force weapon.
Yes. So. Artisan of War is one of the Warlord traits. Add 1 to the damage characteristic of one weapon carried by your Warlord. Note that it cannot be a Relic of Baal.
Yep. That's the one I was talking about, possibly putting on that Thunderhammer Captain.
Yeah, I've already put mine on a Librarian Dread with his Force Halberd.
So Force Halberd, that's just 3 damage, right?
4 now.
That's got 2 attacks still, 3...
Nope, 4 attacks and psychic power to give myself some extra attacks.
4 attacks now on the Libby Dread?
Let's go to Librarian Dread here for a minute. We'll go jump to the psychic powers. Librarian Dreadnought has 3 attacks.
That's what I thought.
Well, now he's just terrible. I'm done.
He's only putting out psychic powers and mortal wounds and flying across the table.
No big deal.
He's a flying washing machine.
Which is more intimidating if you think about it.
Yeah. He can do what?
Okay, so as also promised, let me talk about Mephiston here for a minute.
Hold on 1 second. Can we just... What was it? You all had flying land raiders, or deep striking land raiders that fell out of the sky, and now we have flying dreadnoughts.
They flew then, too.
Yeah, they flew, yeah.
There's definitely a theme going here with...
I used to love having Mephiston and the dreadnoughts jumping around.
Yeah. You ever beat somebody by just fear of the darknessing them off the table with failed morale tests?
Yes. When it used to be a 24-inch bubble.
Yeah.
That was obnoxious. Okay, so Mephiston, Chief Librarian Mephiston, 7-inch move, which is good for a character that's just walking normally. No other means of propelling himself than his own 2 legs. Hits on a 2+ for both his weapon skill and ballistic skill. 5 wounds, strength 5, toughness 5. The Sanguine Sword is ×2 strength, -3 AP with D3 damage. He can ignore injury on a 5+. He adds 1 to the Deny the Witch test you take.
And is that all the time?
That's a psychic code. So that's what they do. That's what they do all the time. Yeah.
And then does he still know all of the Blood Angel
powers?
He doesn't.
He knows 3 powers.
I wish he knew them all.
And
but
smite.
3 is bad.
3
isn't
and
bad.
smite.
3 is not terrible.
So let's get to the power. So quickening, if you manifest it on a 7, so 50-50 essentially, you can add 3 to the advance and charge rolls you make for the Psyker and make D3 additional attacks with them in the fight phase. Unleash Rage, manifest on a 6. If you manifest it, select a single Blood Angel unit within 12 inches of the Psyker. Until the start of your next Psychic phase, add 1 to the attack characteristics of that unit.
I love this on those big 15-man squads of Death Company or larger squads of Sanguinary Guard.
The Unleash Rage on the unit, that's pretty strong. Shield of Sanguinus, 5+ invulnerable save. That's also on a unit. On a Blood Angel unit within 12 of the Psyker.
It's 5 up.
Down from 4 up.
4 up in the index, yeah.
And still the same warp charge cost, which makes me frown just a little bit.
Manifest on a 6. Blood Boil, manifest on a 6. If manifested, select a visible enemy unit within 6 inches of the Psyker and roll 2d6. If the total exceeds the highest toughness characteristic in the target unit, the unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. If the total rolled is more than double that of the highest toughness characteristic, the unit suffers 3 mortal wounds instead. So you're rolling 2d6 trying to beat the toughness.
Well, they changed Blood Bowl all around, didn't they?
Yep. It didn't used to require line of sight, and it was just like 3 dice trying to equal or exceed.
It did require... The old one was Warp Charge 5. It did require line of sight. It did say select a visible enemy unit, but you rolled 3 dice, and then they suffered a mortal wound for each result that equaled or exceeded the toughness characteristic.
So this wounds things with a toughness 6 or greater. Mm-hmm. So there's an upside. The Blood Lance, Warp Charge 6. If manifested, select a visible enemy model within 12 and draw a line between them and the Psyker. Roll a d6 for each model in the center. The center of the line passes over. For each roll of a 5+, that model suffers a mortal wound. That model's unit. Let me say that. For each roll of a 5+, that model's unit suffers a mortal wound.
If you got a bunch of orc boys all crammed in together, maybe that'll be worth it.
I'm never taking that. Yeah.
But I see the situational usability of that as very low.
I think I had something on a Astra Militarum. I think there's one similar to that, and trying to line up that shot is tedious at best and just a pain in the butt, at any other time to try to get more than 2 models hit. I mean, I would rather just
on the
smite.
5s, yeah.
I'd rather just smite. Just smite in your
or Blood Boil.
Yeah, anything that has a chance of getting mortal wounds off is probably better.
You want that
with that.
The Wings of Sanguinus. This is one that gives you the fly keyword. If manifested on a 5+, the Psyker can immediately move if it were your movement phase. This is important. I'll read the whole thing. If manifested, the Psyker can immediately move as if it were your movement phase, but his move characteristic is also increased to 12, and he gains the fly keyword until the start of your next psychic phase. This means he can shoot if he fell back in the movement phase. That's like in parentheses. We don't even have to imply that.
Yeah. What I like about this... Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
In addition, while the power is in effect, you can reroll failed charge rolls for the Psyker. Booyah!
All right, so this is like ultimate ideal scenario going through my head, right? Start the game, Mephistopheles in a rhino or something. He gets out 3. He moves 7. That means he's moved 10 inches. He casts his power. He moves 12. So now he's moved 22 inches. And he is right in your face. Ready to reroll his charge distance. These psychers, and especially the walkers, they're going to get up there. They're going to reach you, and it lasts till the start of your next psychic phase. So in their next movement phase, their movement value is still at 12, and they still have the fly keyword.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even think about that. So they're basically, yeah, that's good.
Word is the word, my friend.
Yeah, you're taking advantage of that twice, and then he's just going to cast it again the next turn and do it again. That is fun. That's the only word for that. That's real
Good
fun.
luck getting away from that.
Yeah.
So while the Codex doesn't have things like a Berserker level assault unit, there is a little bit more innate, I think, power in the army itself, and the stratagems really complement what the army is supposed to be doing. The same with the psychic powers.
I think you're right on that, and there's still a few things that I wanted to see that aren't in here. For example, landing closer than the 9 inches, like a stratagem that allowed you to do that, or an ability. Like Dante having an ability like he used to, where you would land more accurately, something that would let you get in a little closer. Abilities like that, and some of the things that have gone away over the years, like Mephistopheles' transfixing gaze. Of course, how would that work in 8th? I don't know, but I miss it.
Neg 1 to hit or something like that. I mean, we could wish list for days with every single codex that comes out. But while I do like some of my really assaulty units to be able to kill other assaulty units, you've now got to, I guess, play, a little bit. Like, you've got to risk. Like, do you want to start your death company on the table and use that stratagem that lets them move in advance before the game starts?
Yeah, are you confident enough that you're going to go first?
Yeah. Do you want to keep them in reserve and do that that ability that lets them roll 3d6? And I think that having, Lamarches or a Death Company character, that's around there, and I like the ability to put a character into Fall of the Black Rage. These are all things that the Codex should be doing. And while there may be a little bit lack of in your face, like this says on paper, I'm going to beat every assault unit out there. There's still a lot of things you can do that give you an advantage.
Well, I like that it's still going to require you to know what's up with your army. You're still going to be required to move the models, put them where they need to be, and play the game. The Codex isn't going to win the game for you, but it's giving you all the tools.
For that.
Yeah, exactly. We're not you're not Ultramarines players, so The Codex isn't going to do all the work for you, but it's giving you all the tools that the Blood Angels want, so that their army feels like the Blood Angels on the table.
Being able to move fast,
yeah,
rewarding us for taking themed unit choices, and I'm not using theme as like a code word for subpar. I'm talking about Death Company,
right?
Dreadnoughts, Sanguinary Guard. It's rewarding us for doing that, and provides some context for the Primaris Marines being the Blood Angels too. I mean, there's a use where they fit within the army roles.
Yeah, and I think it's amazing how the Red Thirst really, like, it's because in my mind, Primaris Marines have a place. They have a place, and they are useful units. But just the Red Thirst alone makes them so much more viable. And the fact that Inceptors are jump pack units, and you have all those benefits that kind of sneak in there with jump pack units. And I think Blood Angels are really going to be able to take advantage of Primaris units more than say Dark Angels have until their Codex comes out, and the vanilla Marines, Ultramarines and all those guys they haven't really been able to really capitalize on them, and I think Blood Angels are going to be able to do so more than any other chapter to date anyway.
Let's take a quick break. We'll come back and talk about Paint and Red in the Finish Move segment, and then remember, after that, as long as my upload capacity is there, we're going to have 2 more segments past this. So hold tight.
My gosh.
Is your garage full of dusty old models? Head on over to Frontline Gaming's secondhand shop. We buy, sell, and trade used Warhammer miniatures daily. Head on over to frontlinegaming.org for more details.
Hey everybody, we are back. This is time for the Finish Move segment, where I thought it's appropriate that we talk about painting red. And this is something that's come up. It comes up a lot. We've talked about some techniques before, but I think it's especially important to discuss in a hobby segment when you're painting a lot of red. I'm talking about like armies worth or something that you plan on picking back up a year from now, 2 years from now, and painting more units, because reds are very difficult colors because the shades change over time. Not of the stuff you have, but like the vendors themselves, their reds. 2 years from now, if that company changes its formula, the red is going to stand. The different red stands out a lot.
Yep, he speaks the truth.
So, as someone who has repainted a attack squad like no less than 10 times. But because it was always one shade off or whatever, just trying to get it right.
Just trying to match it up.
Well, now I've got kind of a practice when I'm getting red, or when I plan on buying or painting a number of red models. I get 3 or 4 pots of the color that I'm using, and I may not use all that one pot in the first sitting, but I'll get through it.
Yep, it's always buy in bulk.
With red. I mean, and maybe you don't go to the extreme, but when you're getting red, if it's a color that you like, get 2 reds. And I'm talking about, this is the Citadel reds, this is the Vallejo reds, this is the Army Painter reds, this is I've seen this happen across all brands. Get a couple of the pots that you like if you're going to be painting an army that you think you're going to be attached to for a long time.
You're like that guy that finds a bottle of wine he really likes, so he goes and buys a case and just hoards it for for like
you
50
take
years and
sips.
just pulls one out at special occasions. As you go dust off, blow the dust off your old paint and pull it out, get ready to use it.
Look, when you paint a Razorback that is a shade off from the rest of your Razorbacks, it will haunt your dreams, Ricky.
Yeah. No, I know. Yeah, you're preaching to the choir. So
this is just look, tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. That's fine, but you will when it happens to you, you will remember this. So I guess that part of the technique can be used for any army. But about red itself, and I'm going to jump past the strong base coat, like a Mephiston or a Khorne red is an excellent base coat because it's going to allow you to work up to a much brighter color with the other reds. And the way light works is that the top coat will be impacted by the bottom coat. So get a strong bottom coat on your miniatures. And I don't tell anybody, but I go back and forth between Mephiston and Khorne red.
Well, do you prime black or white with your Marines?
I either prime gray for Blood Angels or Mephiston red.
I always prime black, and I work up from black to Khorne red to Mephiston red to Wild Rider red, and then I'll go through a set of highlights using like a mix between Wild Rider red and, say, Fugan orange or Fire Dragon bright, whichever the one that is.
Yep. And
then I'll do a dry of the Kindle Flame around the edges of the armor from there. And you want to talk about building up the colors through layers, that is a lot more colors than you really need to use. But that creates the what I think of as the perfect red for my Blood Angels. And it's taken about 20 years of trying different recipes to come there.
You can't argue with the results. They look good. I'm not a big believer in the dry stuff, but that doesn't mean it doesn't work. And it doesn't mean that you can't apply it in a certain way that makes it look great. But before that step, I think you have some choices before you even get to that part about how to edge highlight your figures, is the different kind of washes and how they react to reds. Because choosing between a black wash, like a Nuln Oil, or even like a soft body black from Secret Weapon, and going between like a sepia wash or just Agrax Earthshade radically changes how the way your army looks a little bit.
Yeah, and between all those, personally, I go for the Agrax because it's got a bit of a warmer brown to it, whereas something like a Reikland Flesh Shade,
that's another one.
Yeah, it's almost orange, and I feel like it kind of, for being a wash, it doesn't really create the contrast and the crevices I like to see.
You want those recesses. You want them dark, and I'm with you right there, exactly what you're saying.
The brighter your scheme is, the more that Reikland flesh shade is probably going to be applicable to you. But for me, the black is too much. Agrax is just perfect, and the sepia, it isn't a warm brown. It's just kind of a flat brown. I prefer that on my skins.
When I'm doing yellows, I will typically use the sepia as a shade.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because I'm terrible at painting yellows, but that's not the subject. The subject is painting red. But the wash, you can put multiple washes. Let me say, you have a choice of washes to help you with your overall effect. For my characters, I like a little bit more contrast, and so I've gone with, I will give them the brown wash, typically an Agrax as well, sepia in certain areas, like as I get closer to the top levels, but then going back in with a little bit of black. And because some of those Blood Angel armors have like sculpted pecs and, abs and stuff on them.
Oh yeah, we are the Greek ideal, right?
Yeah, I like to have a little bit of the black wash in there, but not so much that it definitely, like, you could peg it as the black wash. I like to kind of get a little creative, and sometimes I mix a little black and a brown together to kind of give me that real contrast, that depth in the recesses.
Yeah, and you want that. That is exactly what you're looking to do, is create the contrast that you'll see from 3 feet away. Because it doesn't do anybody any good to look at your models and not be able to tell that you actually did a recess wash.
Yeah, if it just looks too overly dry brushed or something like that. Even if you didn't dry brush it, like that's like the worst thing. Like, oh man, it's a great dry brush, and you just spent like hours trying to layer that paint on there.
I would just say thanks and then crawl under the table.
Oh, you do.
Die.
That's it.
Yeah.
You just think, what's that?
Thanks,
what's that
bro.
Meme? Lie down, try not to cry.
Yeah,
cry a lot. Yeah. But I think it's the takeaway here is that, well, one, the hues and reds from every vendor change over time. Get a lot, get more than you think you're going to need for what you're doing, because you will inevitably want to add another unit. You're going to have to touch something up that you mess around with later. Something gets a chip or whatever. You want to have some backup, and then your wash choice. You could do anything we just said, like any of the washes we just said, and you will be just fine. So find something that you can comfortably work with. And this works. This doesn't have to work for red armor. This works for red anything. Any of those color washes are going to look good on red, in my opinion.
Yep. I mean, there's definitely argument to be made, and if you're highlighting your reds up to kind of like a more, I want to say pinkish red. I think the color I'm looking for, is Wild Rider red. Is kind of the light pinkish one.
Wild Rider is also a bright red. There is the Evil Sun's Scarlet.
Yeah, that one I think is a little darker, and that one is the one that I usually build up from before I go to the orange. I may have switched them around in my head when I was mentioning it earlier, just because I like the warmer orange highlight to them a little bit.
I like a bright, very angry red.
Yeah. And so when you put like Paul's models down next to my models, or if you see a picture of them next to each other, you can kind of tell the difference in the way that we prefer that, and they both look good. Yeah, but there's just different ways of pulling off the kind of color that you're going for.
Yeah, and that's the key. I think you can get a little bit experimental with the washes, but you can still build up, by the way, the same highlight colors. But you will still get a markedly different look on the army based on the wash color. I mean, I'm not telling you anything you don't know already, but based on the wash colors. But don't be afraid. Like, if you haven't used browns on reds before, you haven't used sepia or Reikland flesh shade on red, you should try it on an armor plate to see how you like it.
Yeah, everybody's got like a spare rhino door floating around somewhere. That's the perfect kind of flat surface or
well, it's easy for us.
Test ground.
Yeah, rivets. It has rivets on it, so you can get but it's real easy for us to slather everything in Nolan oil.
Yep, and you want to be controlled with that.
Well, I mean, it's our go-to. Like, we have it. We know we have some. We're going to use it. That's what we're going to use in everything. But
yeah,
the browns and reds, that's where it's at. And that's what I'm talking about. Buy a lot of red. Don't be afraid to go crazy with the washes. Mix them up if you think that's what you need. If you need some stark contrast, mix a little brown in with a black. Don't rely just on the black wash for this type of stuff.
Yep.
Next week we can cover painting yellow helmets.
Yes, I see where you're going with this, Paul Murphy.
I'm terrible at painting yellow helmets. I have a cheat. I'm going to tell you, I use washes. But anyway, I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why you use the washes on the next show.
It's been a washing episode. We've been talking about washing machines. Paul's, when he's painting, he's a washing machine. There's a lot of washes going on.
Theme.
Yep.
This
Wash Out
podcast,
for Blood Angels. There's our episode name.
Goodness.
Wash Out for Blood Angels.
Sponsored by Maytag.
Wish we get that Maytag sponsorship.
Man, need a new washer.
Well, guys, thank y'all for talking with us about Blood Angels, listening to us talk about Blood Angels. We'll have a different angel to talk about next week.
Dark Angels, best angels.
You keep telling yourself that.
Well, guys, you have a good rest of your night. Remember, hang in here. Everyone listening, hang in for the extra segments. It's going to be as long as I can upload this whole thing. It'll be a giant episode, so it might space you out. But we are going to continue coverage throughout the holidays. Look forward to hearing from y'all next week.
Cheers.
Good night.
Forged Narrative is brought to you by DiceHead.com. www.dicehead.com. Games, hobby, supplies, and comics. They have it all.
Hey everybody, welcome to a very special segment of Forge the Narrative. My name is Paul Murphy, your host. I'm joined today by Chris Morgan.
Hey guys.
And Mr. David Annandale.
Hello all.
Thank you very much for joining us again.
Oh, thanks so much for having me on.
Now, you were just at the Black Library Weekender.
I was, and what a great time it was.
I'm hoping we can get some information from you as like a remote reporter, as being someone there, because I know you're a fan of all this stuff, and as someone that people would like to come see at this thing, you're on both sides of it.
Which is, it almost feels like they're wearing two hats and instead of swapping them, trying to wear them at the same time.
Were you there specifically to promote Ruinstorm? Because that's the book, the latest Horse Heresy book that's come out that you've done.
Yeah. Well, I guess that would have been the the proximate cause for my being there. But it was also its release now being a couple of months in the past. It wasn't, let's say, one of the new pre-releases that was being offered on the table there. So it was. I guess it would have been why I was there, but also just to. I mean, there were a couple of other books that I'm just finished or I'm working on that were announced then as well. So kind of a few different reasons for being out there.
Well, I'm sure they were happy to have you. What are some of the things you can tell us about the event?
I guess it sort of depends on what people wanted to know. There was a mixture. I mean, there were some panels about what's coming next.
We want to know all the secrets. We want all the spoilers about what's coming next.
Yeah, and for some of those panels, they were on the same time as the panels I was on, which was not those panels. So I'd be talking. So Clint Werner and I, for instance, would have been talking about plot structure, while some of the stuff about some of Dan Adam's new projects were happening in another room. So in that regard, as much as I do. I was present though for the coming attractions at the end of the weekender. So among other things that were announced, for instance, is a new Caiaphas Cain novel by Sandy Mitchell.
I heard people were very excited about that.
Well, yes, that was greeted with great rejoicing, as you can imagine.
Man, that's pretty cool. What's it like to be around? Because I think you've probably been in meetings, at least or whatnot, with some of the other authors. But what is it like being there with all that amazing talent in the same area?
It's really gratifying. For one thing, it's one of the. I mean, every weekender I've been to, so this would be my third now, has been an unalloyed pleasure, and on two fronts. One is sort of meeting the fans, discovering that after the hours and hours and hours you spend alone in front of the computer, and then you send this document off into the ether, and then sooner or later there's a book that comes in a box at your place. But then finding out that, hey, people are actually reading the stuff that spending so much time on, and that's that's really nice, right? Getting that kind of interaction with your readers is a really special thing. And then as well with the getting a chance to meet the other writers, to get to know each other as people rather than simply as names. And it's a very congenial bunch. I remember the first time that I went out there. So this was around the time that Imperial Creed was coming out. So still relatively early in my tenure with Black Library, and just how welcoming I found everybody. Immediately felt at home. And that has continued. So even if it might be years since I've seen some of these people, it feels like you're just picking up right where you left off.
Everyone that attends seems to have just a really nice feeling about going. It seems like it's real fun, and everyone gets some kind of like personal experience that they get to take away from it.
Yeah, I certainly hope that's true for everyone. I certainly, some of the readers I was talking to at the end of the weekend seemed very, very happy with how things had gone, and very much looking forward to the next time. Which I certainly I would second that feeling.
Well, I mean, that's good. I mean, these are the things that not everyone gets to attend these types of things, but it seems to be worth the trip. That's what I get from everyone that attends on your side and the fan side. Yeah,
well, it certainly is for me. And I know there were some of the fans there had come from at least as far away as I had, and they certainly seemed to be. They did feel that it had been worth the trip for them.
That's really encouraging. I've not been able to make it to one of these yet, but I'd love to. And everything I hear just drives me in that direction.
Yeah, you're talking, David, about having a plot discussion panel. Mm-hmm. What I think a lot of people fail to realize about like Black Library Weekenders is there are seminars about writing as much as there are about what Black Library is coming out with. And like the technique involved, and that's the part that really gets me. Is I want to sit in on those conversations and kind of learn some of the ways that you guys approach, a single book narrative versus a series spanning narrative. Those sorts of things are very fascinating to me.
Yeah, and there were a number of the panels that sort of took on different aspects of that process. So there was at least the ones that I was on were the sort of structuring of the novel, but then one on the short story specifically. So how that's different from writing a book-length narrative. And then there was another one on just writing the Primarchs and what it means to get inside their heads, and how writing them is different from writing other characters in the 40k universe and elsewhere. So yeah, there'll be these sort of different. It's never just a kind of like a generalized look at the process. It's a bit more sort of in depth, an angle given for every panel. And they've also had in the past there's been workshops and things like that too.
Man, that's pretty cool. That is right in line with some things I want to ask you, because in Ruin Storm, there's like a ton of Primarchs in that book.
A few, right?
Yeah. I got to play with 4 of them in that one, which was, I mean, as far as my full length heresy work is concerned, this was a big jump from none in the Damnation of Pythos to and a shattered, a splinter of the Shattered Legions. To suddenly 4 Primarchs and 3 fleets. So a lot of big toys to play with this time.
That's pretty weighty. When early on in the Heresy series, when they started coming out non-linearly, I guess non-storyline linear wise, I would kind of, whenever I go on a trip, I just pull one off the shelf that I got and then look at the Dramatis Personae at the beginning there and figure out which book I wanted to read based on the number of Primarchs that were in that book. And I want you to know this one would have definitely made the cut.
Excellent.
But that, I mean, I'm slightly kidding about that. This book is about the travel from Gilliman's empire that he's building back to Terra,
or at least the attempt to do, or the attempt to do so. I mean, the full run to Terra is yet to come. So this is the Ruinstorm is the turning point where at the end of Angels of Darkness, Gilliman the Lion and Sanguinius have realized that Terra must still be present. So the whole Imperium Secundus thing has been a terrible mistake. And so they need to get to Terra, but the problem is the Ruinstorm. That was what led to their error in the first place, right? The Astronomicon is apparently gone, or at least they cannot detect it. I mean, the only reason that they haven't suddenly seen Terra is the Lion has figured out that, oh wait a minute, it must still be there. So this is the challenge. How do they defeat the Ruinstorm so they can get to Terra and hopefully stop Horus? So this is the story of their battle with the Ruinstorm in the attempts to open up the way to Terra. That's still there's going to be a whole gauntlet to get past once that's done. But until this thing has in some way been dealt with, there's just no way of getting there.
I've loved the interaction of the Primarchs from these series of books. I mean, just the way that they all interact with each other, including, like, this is where I started to pick up my appreciation for Lionel Johnson, was in this storyline arc.
Yeah, like the Angels of Darkness, where you finally get to see kind of the Lion play with others or not play with others, as he's wont to do. Right. And the juxtaposition between him and Gilliman and Sanguinius and kind of like the triumvirate of Imperium Secundus, and just like right from the get-go in the book, you approach their three different ways of trying to get through the storm. You know, Sanguinius, he needs to get through the storm because he feels he needs to atone, and then you've got Gilliman, who's like trying to systematically think his way through the ruined storm, and then you've got the Lion, and that's it's a secret.
Yeah, and certainly, I think I may have misspoke. I meant Angels of Caliban. If I said Angels.
Oh, that's right.
The thing with and certainly so Gav Thorpe very much set out the roadmap for me there too, as the different agendas that they have, and so though they all have a goal in mind, they're working together in the sense that they want to stop Horus and need to get through the storm. But yeah, the different levels of guilt and the way that they're going to atone is going to pull them in different directions. And what each of them thinks is the right way of going about this may wind up being in conflict in some ways with the others. As well, their different positions also reveals different chinks in their armor, which is going to leave them vulnerable to the very specific attacks directed their way by the antagonist in the book.
So what is it like? I mean, I know you mentioned there's a whole workshop on this apparently, but what is it like writing from the perspective of a Primarch? Now, we've asked several different authors this way, or this question, and we've always got interesting answers, but I'm really curious to hear your take on it.
Well, I guess one of the things that came up during the panel and is that when we talk about the Primarchs as being demigods, it's really important to emphasize, I think, both sides of the hyphen. So on the one hand, they are godlike. They are bigger. They are bigger than life. They are figures of myth, and so there should be that sense of the grandiose with them, right? That as you know, gigantic and larger than life figures so many Space Marines are anyway, these should be even greater. So the scale of what they do and the scale of what they face should be concomitantly massive. But on the other side of the hyphen, they aren't gods, right? They're demigods, so they are still human. So there are the weaknesses, the foibles, the jealousies, the insecurities that come with being human. Well, and for that matter, if we sort of go back to myths, you see plenty of those in, say, the Greek gods and whatnot, right? So those aspects are going to be present too, and where a flaw in a human being, let me rephrase this, their flaws are going to lead to concomitantly greater consequences.
Right.
That the mistakes that they make are going to affect the lives of billions, right? Their weaknesses, their flaws could determine the fate of a galaxy. So everything is bigger, but everything should also be recognizable and understandable.
Yeah, that's got to be a big challenge. I mean, I just had this image of Hercules in space. You know, you want to talk about like a demigod that made, mistakes were made, and he had to do his penance. And you have the same kind of approach coming from some of these demigods, and there's a lot of people, fans of the heresy, fans of particular Primarchs. I know Paul and I are the ultimate Sanguinius fanboys when it comes to that, and just taking up those traits to the nth degree and putting them in these situations that require these heavy decisions. I liked how each of the Primarchs at some point gets tempted with something. And it's something that nags at them, and their mistakes nag at them, and the journey to conquer that for each of them is like tailored specifically to those weaknesses.
Yeah, and we certainly have a long tradition of gods or the sons of gods being tempted in in whatever religious or mythical tradition you want to look at, right? So we have, which the world of the Horus Heresy and 40k adopt quite liberally. I wanted the temptations to be very specific to them, not only to highlight their individual characters more clearly, but also to emphasize the scale of the threat that they're up against. If the enemy is able to tailor the threats that specifically to all three of them simultaneously, actually all four of them, if you want to throw in Kurz, because he's not enjoying himself that much either in the book.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure every Night Lord's playing is being a little emasculated after Kurz has left that, and I'm going to say it right now. I'm pretty okay with that. But yeah, I mean, in talking about scale and the scale of the challenges, while we're talking about these very nuanced, tailored kind of threats, you've also got 3 entire legions worth of ships and fleets that are put up against some of the most crazy set pieces I've seen in a 40k novel. And I hesitate to spoil all of them, but you're mixing nuanced personal conflict with titanic galactic combat. And I think that people who are looking for bigger than big are going to be very pleased from what they read in that.
Well, I hope so. Thanks. My model here was certainly, Jim Swallow's Fear to Tread was a big influence here, with the gigantic set pieces he has there, and how he tied those into the personal struggles of the Blood Angels Legion. And so I was trying to, I wanted to follow in that path. It's kind of like he kind of sort of set down, well, this is the scale of events, and there's a kind of bookending, or mirroring, I should say, that I was conscious of needing to do, because the Blood Angels, they're doubly cursed, right? And so we had one side of that curse being directly addressed in Fear to Tread, and I wanted to tackle the other in as one of the things going on in Ruinstorm. Then that also ties into the whole question of destiny and fate and free will and whatnot.
Exactly. I also love, just to kind of throw this in here, how you pulled in some, kind of tied a bow around the Herald of Sanguinius audio drama that Andy Smiley did, bringing in, the Herald of Sanguinius, the Sanguinor himself, and kind of, you're not solving the mystery, you're just kind of starting it in this novel of like who that character is and what he does. And I was just kind of giddy at that point, just trying to say, oh, this is when that starts, but I still have no idea what that means.
It's a bit of there's a balancing act, right? You don't want to the appeal of so many of the characters is the mystery, right? And so there's a paradox there in that we want to, because there's a mystery, we want to know the answer to it. But there are some mysteries that we should never know the answer to, or never fully, right? Because then there's no more mystery. And so the challenge for narratives where there is the need to preserve a mystery, and yet not make it, and yet you don't want to make it frustrating either. And so, can you, hint at something, provide a partial answer, a direction that might point to where something has come from without giving the game away.
That's one of the things that Warhammer 40k does excellently, almost better than any other property out there, is that it, even sometimes when it gives you an answer, like a real, what you can take the bank as an answer, it's from the perspective of a single creature or a single force or whatever, and still might not be the actual answer, but it's something that fans of that can take.
Yeah, and it's pointed out that this is such a huge and complex universe with so many narratives that they're going to wind up in conflict with each other. We are getting these things from so many perspectives, filtered across so many millennia, that you can't get an absolutely seamless kind of continuity across all species, all chapters, all legions, and nor I think would it be desirable, right? If we look at the kind of collections of myths that these stories are drawing upon, right, and the Horus Heresy is very much the war in heaven, then these bodies of myths that inspire so much of what's going on here are themselves internally cracked, and there isn't a perfect consistency. And I think that's one of the an added layer of complexity and pleasure that these narratives can bring.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. That's one of the reasons. I mean, I like sometimes noticing that too. When I read a book and then a year later, 2 years later, I might read another book and it's telling me a different version of the same truth, and yet somehow they're both correct.
Right. So
I mean, at the same time, you guys do a great job.
Good. Thank you. I mean, at the same time, sometimes it is fun to tie certain bows, right? Or to bring back, like I did enjoy myself in the way that I was able to bring in aspects from both the Unburdened and the Damnation of Pythos, and have these kind of either explicit or implicitly cocked Chekhov's guns from the other books, have them go off in this one.
Yeah, I mean, and that's one of the things that really kind of made me want to go back and review Pythos again, just because a lot of times it kind of gets put in, a footnote of the heresy. This happened, but a lot of people are asking, what impact does this actually have on the rest of the story? And that resolution felt it felt like it vindicated Pythos as a book that matters in the heresy.
Yeah, well, I mean, Pythos was always intended as a kind of a sort of like a side story, right? It was one that could have come out in it didn't matter too much as to in what order it appeared in the schedule, for example, because it was a bit of a tributary. But the point that I did want to bring in here is that even though, I mean, this is one of the things that you see so much in the heresy, right, is that the apparently insignificant events wind up having gigantic consequences. And there's so many aspects of the war where you realize, if only this had gone in a slightly different way, then this would have happened. And so though on the one hand, the struggle of Atticus in the Damnation of Pythos, the poor, it just, nothing works out for him, right? And it's certainly that book is my full-on horror novel for Black Library, and I really wanted at the ending of that book this sense of, that after all this titanic struggle, it is quite literally reduced to a footnote, right? As far as the rest of the Imperium is concerned, it's just a little bit of paperwork that gets lost in the rest. But that in itself becomes part of the tragedy of Pythos, is that what happened there was the attention was not paid, and now the consequences of that are going to be felt, and that already as Ruinstorm begins, billions and billions and billions of people have died or been turned into refugees because of what happened in that book.
So we know the Black Library is going to be kind of pressing on the gas here in the next couple of years or so. How much of that outline has been set in stone, or at least sketched out? And then have they already started divvying out the stories? And I know you can't tell me what those are, but I just kind of get an idea of where the process is.
It is moving forward. So there was one last Horus Heresy meeting back in I can't remember when it was, spring or the summer, and there it was essentially the kind of the core writers who were there from the start. So this is, at least for me, and barring the unforeseen, Ruinstorm is my Heresy swan song. Things are going to be moving fairly quickly, but exactly who's doing what, I couldn't tell you.
I got you there. No, thank you.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I know we're just very excited to see this. As we all know, the very end, but this has been a great journey.
Well, I think it's one of the joys of great tragedies, right? I mean, the point, of a tragedy is that you know how it ends, right? If you go into Romeo and Juliet and are surprised by how it turns out, you kind of miss the point. And the same thing with Oedipus Rex, right? The characters may not know how it's going to end, but we do, right? We have to know. That's what gives the work, a lot of what gives the work their power. Right, it's that
so many scenes have weight because that these characters that are interacting right now with so much camaraderie, so much love in their heart, are going to become bitter enemies later.
Right, or think of the very first line of Horus Rising, which is something to the effect of "I was there the day Horus slew the Emperor." Yeah. Right, if you don't know how this is going to end, then that line doesn't have any that line is going to be robbed of its full resonance. Right. By knowing how it ends, then it's like, whoa, right? That very striking opening, and it is building on our knowledge, right? And that the characters are tragically unaware of. For the heresy, it's important that we know where it's all going to go, and I think what's built into the fiction too, which is one of the things that I wanted to play with in Ruinstorm, is the fact that you have a couple of characters who do know at least partially how it's going to end, right? Mm-hmm. Or at least how they're
going to end,
right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Sanguinius knows how he's going to die, and Kurz does too. And then the problem, though, for them, it becomes that, all right, even if you know this, what's the context, right? For Sanguinius, does his death matter? Is it going to be in the context of Horus triumphant, or is it going to be a sacrifice that will bring things to an end? With Kurz, his foreknowledge that is then shared with the other characters at the end of Angels of Caliban itself. There's a terrible irony here that they misinterpret it, right? Or rather, the lion comes to a partially correct solution for the wrong reasons, because Kurz is going to be killed by the Emperor's assassin. The lion comes to the conclusion that therefore the Emperor must be alive and calling the shots for that to happen. Therefore, Terra must still be around. So yes, Terra is still around, but he has come to the wrong conclusion about the actual nature of Kurz's death. So the more of that tragic irony compounds. And so then and of course the questions arise too, is that if you know how you're going to die, but is it fated, right? Is it possible that there'd be a way of changing that, right? That's
a carrot on the stick you'd love to get to dangle in front of these characters.
Exactly. Or is it like are they in the situation, for instance, of Oedipus, right? Who is another character who knows how it's supposed to end, right? And does everything he can to prevent it from ending that way, and in so doing guarantees that it does.
I have not drawn that comparison before, but that's very interesting to do. You mentioned a horror story, to take us completely off topic, but I want to. There's lots of things that you're involved in, and you have a doctorate in horror,
right?
And I've always found that very interesting. And to jump us completely off topic, we are just past the Halloween season, where a lot of horror movies and stuff come out. Mm-hmm. Are there any that you have particularly liked or can recommend to folks that maybe they didn't catch them? Because there's lots of chafe out there.
Yeah, Paul is very fond of these sorts of things, and a big Cthulhu fan, of course, Lovecraft fan.
I love the psychological stuff. Yeah,
I mean, I think probably the horror film that I think has excited me the most this year is one that hasn't exactly had a low profile, but I'll just mention it anyway. I think with Get Out, we've seen. I mean, it's not that often that you get to see a film come out and you realize, okay, this one is important to the field. This is going to be one for the books. And in fact, then there are books being written about it already the year that it comes out, right? So that was I think Jordan Peele's film is an important one on numerous levels, not just as a horror movie, but certainly in the field in a year that's been a very good one for horror. Even if we're talking about in terms of profitability, it's been a great year to be a horror movie. But here we also get an example of how vital and engaged the form can be.
Why is it important? I mean, I get it that it might be a good movie, but why do you consider it important to the field?
It's an example of how the field can engage in very pointed social critique, and do so in a way that is the tools that it can bring, I think, are specific to the form, the kind of story that it's going to tell. How should I put this? What horror can do is literalize metaphors, right? So the issues of racism that Get Out addresses, it's like taking a number of those problems and suddenly the issues that we talk about in symbolic or metaphorical terms are here rendered literal, right? With the use of bodies and so forth in it. So it's very striking in that regard, and I think also the way in which it establishes a kind of continuity and references to the field, right? It is a very loving work as far as paying as it situates itself within the tradition of the horror film, and I mean also very funny or very very witty, I should say, in the way it delivers its points, but also just so smart and so on point, and it feels to me like the work of someone who both loves and knows the field intimately and can bring the tools to the table, or rather can unleash them in a way that you can it's just a beautiful example of what the form can do. And I have to say the other one that I haven't seen, obviously because it hasn't opened yet, but I'm very much looking forward to, is The Shape of Water, which there's been so many attempts to remake Creature from the Black Lagoon from the 80s onwards, and they've all failed, to the point where I've got a half facetious theory that the original movie is actively cursing every attempt to remake it, because it would be such a bad idea. And because of the very specific content in which The Black Lagoon was made and the kind of story that it tells, I felt that there's really only one way that you could remake that movie and make it worthwhile. But I didn't think anyone would have the nerve to do it. And from what I can see, Del Toro has done just that. It's not called Creature from the Black Lagoon, but it's Creature from the Black Lagoon in all but name. It's essentially a stealth remake, and he's gone down the path that, from as far as I can see, that was the only legitimate way I think artistically legitimate way of remaking that film. So I'm really, really looking forward to seeing that.
Have you seen Stranger Things?
Only partially. That's one that's on my the video equivalent of Mount to be read.
Again, not to derail us off, but I think that was a breath of fresh air into things. Both season 1 and season 2 in this industry, and then I caught a trailer for the New Mutants movie that's based off the X-Men comics, or the X-Men branch off comics.
Right, I keep meaning to see that because I'm told they've turned that into a horror film.
It looks
like a horror
film. So, I'm really, these are, as a fan of horror films and books and stories and stuff, I think it's always cool when things that I like jump into mainstream in a way that, like mutants and 80s retro and this other kind of, just getting stuff that jump into mainstream where the normal guys out there will be talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, again, I just want to get your take on at least Stranger Things and if you caught this new Mutants trailer.
No, I hadn't yet. And actually, that was something that someone mentioned to me at the Weekender, and I meant to look at and then completely forgot. But I think what you're saying about the sort of a lot of things jumping into the mainstream is accurate. And if we look at the success of it, here we have a film that, I think it was my stepson who called it gateway horror. In that especially if you see it with a big crowd and people are yelling and screaming and laughing and really engaging with it, and you have lots of people who might not normally go to see horror movies who've gone to see this, and it's scary, but it's not too scary. And I've been thinking of it as the kind of this generation's equivalent of Poltergeist, perhaps, in that kind of big crowd-pleasing horror that doesn't come along that often, but it seems to be in that kind of tradition.
I took us off on a little bit of a fanboy tangent there, so I apologize. But you mentioned something when you were describing Get Out, is that it brings the metaphor into a literal sense.
Yeah.
And how do you use that when you're writing? Because I know, we're talking about visual. We're talking about things that you can, a picture tells 1,000 words, right? So I get that, but there has to be, I think, some kind of underlying thing there about maybe the approach to the writing itself, the craft itself.
Yeah, I do. And I think that certainly that's something that, again, horror can do. Well, as soon as you're dealing with anything that's in the fantastic, right, with things that are impossible, then very easily you're moving into symbolic realms. And so you can, just as the stories start to acquire this symbolic weight, by the same token, you can take symbols and make them literal, right? That the characters are actually having to interact with these things. I think that's one of the joys of the field of the fantastic generally. And I think 40k, or actually the worlds of Games Workshop, there's all this stuff that is very, very clearly symbolic, right? If you think about what the gods of chaos represent and so on. So the material is there, and that's one of the things I've very much enjoyed right from the start in writing for Black Library, is playing with literalized symbols. And yeah, I definitely do that in Ruinstorm. For that matter, in the Neferata book that I just finished a couple months back, there's something in there where I've incorporated Lacanian theory and just made that literal too.
Oh, I'm going to have to Wikipedia that.
So I won't go into too much detail for spoiler reasons, but and in some stuff it's I put it in there and it at the same time trying to make it so that you don't have to have read Jacques Lacan to understand what's going on, but if you have, then you might recognize it too.
And that's pretty cool. It's getting an idea of, as someone who just a consumer, you might think that this stuff just kind of magically jumps on the page, or it's completely as an internal thing within the writer. Which is probably true sometimes, but seeing how you weave all these different things together, I think gives us a really nice view inside your head as to what makes it on the page. And even if the references aren't there in the literal sense, it's neat to think that they're kind of lurking behind the scenes.
Yeah, I think all of us are bringing different aspects of our lives and our interests and our concerns to the page, and what we have, of course, is going to be the readers are going to experience it in a way that's different from what we have, as we put it down there, right? Once the text gets out there, it's beyond our control. The interpretations people are going to bring to it are going to vary from person to person.
People out there may think Sanguinius is a big jerk. They're wrong, but
definitely
they get
wrong.
that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Sorry, Chris, what were you going to say?
No, I was saying they're definitely wrong in that evaluation. You want to talk about a character that's been set up for a big fall? Oh man, it's like I love reading every good thing that's written about Sanguinius, but at the same time, I realize that that's just to make his death all the more tragic.
Yeah. Yeah, he really. I mean, talk about just being screwed from the start. He's just somebody who if you talk about literal symbols being literalized, he's a walking symbol, right? I mean, he's there with his wings, right?
I love that's not ignored in the novels.
No. I mean, and he's conscious of it, right? How could he not be? And I mean, James Swallow was pointing out at the Weekender how here he is the emperor who has declared all religion to be false, and then here's his son who's got wings, and whichever way you want to take that. That's
literal angel. I know we misuse the word literal a lot, but he is quite literally an angel.
Yeah, and however you're going to take that, right? It's like. He has a weight of interpretation being placed on him by everybody, including himself, right? How are you going to deal with the fact that being conscious of the fact that you are a symbol, right? And that everybody's going to, that everybody is interpreting you, right? They're not just seeing you as a person; they're seeing you as this thing that must be interpreted,
completely objectifying you.
Yeah,
the whole way.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's something that. Yeah, I mean, I guess I like the fact that is not ignored. Like that's not even something we have to subtly imply. That is a real concern for the character and his enemies, who know that can be used against them. That could be and something that drags down their campaigns because the Imperium has the characters like this that inspire different things.
It also makes him the most tantalizing to try to get to fall too. If we can get him to fall, then all of a sudden everything that he represents is now turned on its head, and the victory is all the more assured.
Exactly right, which is why he's an even more desirable target for chaos than Horus, right? Because he is the angel, right? So make the angel fall.
Love it. Now, we've talked a lot about Primarchs, of course, but are there any characters in the stories that you've written for the Black Library that you've enjoyed writing for more than the others? That you just really, that you have like conversations with yourself, about the next time you get to write for this guy, I'm going to file that away because that's just such a nice little tidbit.
Some of my favorites would certainly, Yarick would be up there. He was I guess the first recurring character that I wrote about for Black Library, and he was one that he was the first big toy that I got to play with. As soon as I started writing him, I heard his voice in my head, and I just enjoyed all the time I spent with him. Like he very, we felt like old friends almost immediately. So he holds a very special place in my heart. And then more recently, Garen Crow of the Grey Knights. It was again with somebody that I immediately cottoned onto, and so I'm just in fact this weekend working on the pitch for the third book in the Crow trilogy. And which is, so I've been looking forward to getting down to the wrapping up all his adventures, and so he's been so much fun.
I can see that. I mean, that character has. I mean, we see even from the Codex what the conflicts that character has.
Right, and then also talk about being screwed. Right, it's just like, okay, here's this incredible sword. No, don't use it. It's got all these powers. Don't ever use it.
As a competitive gamer, I also have conflict with this character.
Yes, I can imagine. And it's because you're so good that you're going to stick you with this thing. Yeah, okay. It's like so. Yeah, there's a lot of immediate drama there. As I mentioned earlier, I just wrote my first Neferata book, and she was someone else that it just, when I found out that I was going to be writing her, I was literally dancing around the house. I was so excited. And
is that the vampire?
Yeah. So this is going to be my first proper Age of Sigmar novels with her. And again, it was a character that's like, oh man, I'm having so much fun with you. There's just so much.
Did you have to bid on that? Because I thought you maybe would be like the first choice. Like we've got a monster novel to write.
It was one of these weird things where I was just thinking, man, I would really like to write a full Age of Sigmar book, and because I hadn't had a chance to do that yet, and I hadn't told anyone at Black Library this. I was just thinking, and I'm thinking, I should mention to Nick that I would like to do this. And then I get an email from him saying, "Could you write Neferata for us?" Like, yes, and that would certainly, if there was any character in the Age of Sigmar that I would have wanted to write, it would be her. So that was.
And you're referring to Nick Kahn, who's also an editor, in addition to being a writer for the Black Library.
That's right. Yes, and so that was just I was over the moon when I got to do that, and I think the brief I got was to which was a delightful challenge. He said to aim for something like House of Cards meets Crimson Peak by way of Excalibur. So so that's the goal, and really, so it's been I just loved it was a 50,000 word novel just to sort of get things started, and I can't wait to jump back in and do more with her. So those have certainly been of the named characters, I'd say the ones that I've had a particular joy in writing, and I will also toss in Canoness Atheno, which is a character that I came up with in back in the Death of Antagonists, and then made a supporting character in the Yarick books, and she's back in the next Crow book, Castellan, because I always have fun writing her and bring her back whenever I get a chance.
You mentioned Excalibur. I've not seen that movie in a while now. I used to watch it. It used to be on TV, at least once or twice a year, and I'd catch it. Yeah. But I haven't seen that in a couple of years. I think it's time to watch it again. Such a brilliantly done movie. I mean, even now, for the time, I think it was mind-blowing. But
it was certainly one of the defining points of early 80s fantasy. That's for sure.
Well, David, this has been a great chat. Really thanks for letting us kind of see behind the scenes with some of this stuff. Now, do you know when we can expect the Neferata book and then the other ones you mentioned?
I don't know when the Neferata release is. The cover reveal just happened at the Weekender. So the book is done, the typesetting and everything. So, but exactly when it's being released, I don't know. The Castellan, the second Crow book, is early in 2018. I did know when, and now I've forgotten. I have February in my head.
I'm sure there'll be something on the website about it.
Yeah, it's January or February, and I think it's February, but I wouldn't swear to that. And then the other thing that I've just turned in the first draft of is Vulcan, Lord of Drakes. So that's my second entry in the Primarch series.
God, that sounds cool. Oh, I should have. Maybe I can work this back in, but what was it like writing in the New Age of Sigmar paradigm? I mean, I know that maybe your first one, but you were probably at least familiar with the timeline before.
Somewhat. It's been, I think, quite different for me than for some of the others. Like, say, Josh Reynolds, who, wrote so much in the old world, before, now writing so much for Age of Sigmar. I hadn't done any of the old world stuff. It was, so the first time I've done any from the fantasy line for Black Library was a few short stories for Age of Sigmar. I did a couple of Fireslayer short stories and two short stories for the Call of Archaon. And so that was really early in the new history of the Age of Sigmar. So because I didn't have all the experience with the old world, this was kind of like coming in with a blank slate. The characters for me were all effectively new characters, even if they were returning from the old world. I didn't have the baggage of their history there, right? So it's kind of like a clean slate. For me, and I love the scale of the mortal realm. So we have with the Age of Sigmar kind of a canvas that's effectively is as broad as 40Ks. There's no, you're not
dealing with one continent. You've got
the
multiverse.
Exactly. There's no edge of the map to fall off, right? So there's a vastness to it, which is absolutely enticing. And also I think the way that the different realms have very specific characters, and when you want to talk about literalized symbolism, there's a lot to play with there. So I find it very inviting, and also the stage that the Age of Sigmar has developed to now, I think is is a lot of fun to play in, so that because there is now sort of a lot of we have cities, and there's a lot to build with and to develop. So it's like a brand new sandbox, and so for me as a new writer coming into that, it's like I find it very very exciting. I know it's going to be very different for those who had played in the other sandbox, and now there's a brand new one instead of that sandbox, and they're going to be bringing other things to the table. So, but just speaking for myself, it's I really like the potential of this new place, and I just had so much fun with the Neferata book, and I can't wait to get back to it.
Awesome, man! I'm looking forward to checking it out. Well, David, again, thanks again for coming and talking with us, and I hope you have a good rest of your night.
Thanks very much. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Take care, David.
You too.
FTN is brought to you by Bell of Lost Souls. Check out www.bols.org for the best daily hobby articles on the web.
Hey everybody, welcome to a very special segment of Forge the Narrative. My name is Paul Murphy, your host. I'm joined by Carl Tuttle from the Independent Characters.
Hey, thanks for having me again, Paul. I really appreciate it.
Well, Carl, I've been on this ramp up for like getting ready for tournament season and preparing for all these giant tournaments, and I wanted to make sure people know that I cared about the narrative side, so I want to bring you on.
Well, that's good, because I was about to say you brought me on the wrong episode.
Talking about the kinder, gentler side of Warhammer 40k.
Okay. It may be kinder, but it's not necessarily gentler. Okay.
I'm giving you a hard time. I know.
I don't care.
But I want to talk a little bit about power level gaming, because I know that you and your folks, you play a lot out of the using power levels to construct armies.
Yeah.
And out of the open war deck for missions. I mean, you're just playing. I think one of the ways that 8th edition is intended to be played right now.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, and what's interesting is it kind of surprised me too. Like, I wasn't really on board with the power level thing. And even when 8th edition first launched, we were like, our first games were points based, right? I mean, because that's what you do. Hey, let's play. In fact, I remember the day we were like, oh, let's get together and all play games. And I said, let's do like a 1,000-point game or a 750-point game or something like that. And Justin was like, well, that's real small. And I'm like, I know, because I've been through edition shifts, and those 750,000-point games are going to take a while as you're figuring out all the rules. So we had built, those lists, and somebody the next day was like, well, why don't we try power level? And I was like, oh, I guess I just really didn't think about it. And so the next time I said, hey, let's do power level. So we're going to do these power level games. And like all of us just latched onto it for some reason. I mean, we really, really enjoy the ease of, I'm just going to build. And listen, I recognize that there are some limitations to it, but we just really enjoy the ease of, I make my list like this and I'm ready to go. And we have always played WYSIWYG here. We have always played fully painted models. So for us, this was not a long shot or a stretch, right? We put our models out and we're like, those guys have melta guns, clearly, because that's how they're modeled.
I understand what you're saying. And I think that it's just another system. I mean, you say there are limitations to power level. There's limitation to points. I mean, you get those awkward,
right?
You're trying to, make 2,000 points and there's just, there's these awkward combinations. I mean, I know there's an art to it, but I think it's just another system.
I think the biggest, so there are a couple caveats, like, as I said, limitations or things you need to consider, I would say, with power level. The first one is, and when Chris came out here from your show and we played, I made him play power level, and I don't think he liked it so much.
The Blood Angels really suffer right now out of the index with power level.
Well, I don't think it was so much that as he really likes the fact that, I'm a couple points over. Okay, I'll drop this power fist and instead take a power sword, and that drops me another 10 points.
Yeah, I got you.
So now I'm within, when you're playing power level, it's like, oh, I'm over points. Well, I guess I'll drop this whole 10-man unit. Now, what am I going to fit in there? You don't have quite the flexibility that you do with points if you're going for a very rigid, like, hey, we're going to play 50 power level and that's it. I typically shoot for a little less than 50. That way I'm pleasantly surprised if I hit 50, or whatever the case may be.
What do you find is a good power level to game with? I mean, what is a 2,000 points worth of power level?
I think about 100 power level is 2,000 points at this point. And that's typically, honestly, what we're playing. We're typically playing about 100 power level games. And it seems to work for our group very, very well. I said that until I started playing Thousand Suns, and I was like, these are overcosted. This is ridiculous. But I mean, maybe when my Codex comes out for my Thousand Suns, I'll be happier.
Yeah, I mean, power level is a core concept of the game right now, and I'm not trying to oversell it. I play with points. I play with points, but at the same time, I design missions, and I think that power level is a interesting thing to work into mission objectives. When you summon demons, for instance, or summon anything, you're summoning power level. Or points worth of things, or it can be power level. I mean, it factors into the game.
Well, the interesting thing I think about it too is you can factor in things like there are some missions in the open war deck, and let's talk about that in a minute. But there's some missions where it's like, well, the team that destroys the most power level worth of units, get wins or whatever the case may be. So I mean, there's also the ability to flip back and forth between the two. And I don't want to say that. Listen, much like carrying case systems, right? Like. They're not, one size doesn't necessarily fit all. And there have been multiple people who said, oh, well, is KR better than Battle Foam, or is Table War better than KR or Battle Foam, or is Battle Foam better than, I always say, well, what is it you're trying to accomplish, right? Like, if you're trying to fly on an airplane, I wouldn't suggest a large Table War case. If you are, then I would suggest something along the lines of Battle Foam or KR that they fit more appropriately in the overhead and are good for travel. Power level and points are virtually the same thing. Like, what is it you're trying to actually accomplish in your game? If you're just trying to do some kind of narrative type of event, like right now we're running a narrative campaign, power level is a great feature, and it allows you to quickly adjust your army or even ramp up an army very quickly. If you're like, well, you know what? Normally we play 100 power level. Let's do 120 because I'm just a little bit over and I'd really like to use this unit. Okay, great. Here, I'll take these other 2 units and you take this other 1 unit and we're good to go. It's very simple to calculate.
And building your models the way you want. Like, there's very few things that bump the power level. I mean, like a jump pack or whatever on certain characters is 1 point, but the number of power fists in the squad doesn't matter.
Right. And so it's just how is your army equipped? I mean, which now again, talking about the limitations, going back to that, yes, I hear a lot of complaints about, oh, well, this army does very well in the power level area. Sure. I mean, look, no system is perfect. I'm going to tell you that. And points aren't perfect either. And as much as people would like to make that argument, I completely disagree that points are a perfect representation or even a necessarily closer representation. No matter what Games Workshop does or how they dictate how your army is built, whether it's the original Age of Sigmar, just put models on the table, or whether it's here's power level or points, people are going to exploit it no matter what.
Oh, of course. Yeah, it's just another system. I mean, there will be people that find they will power game. Any system is power gameable. Yep.
Absolutely. So, I will say one of my first power level games, I played Tyranids. And for Tyranids, it's like, well, why don't I load them up with biomorphs? I mean, that is always like the thing with Tyranids, where when you are buying points, you can tend to kind of run away with a unit and be like, well, it's got wings and it's got venom and it's got this and it's got that. And the next thing you know, that was one of the first things I learned about Tyranids when I started sharing lists. People are like, you are way overloading this unit. It's not going to do all those things.
I got set up on launch day. My poor Blood Angels had to play Tyranids, and he had everything, every single thing. And I'm trying to get over there with, well, this guy's got a power sword. He's like, well, acid blood and double scything and this and that and adrenal glands. I'm like, well, you got me.
The thing I will say is it allowed me to learn too, though, which of these abilities I wouldn't pay for in points.
That's interesting.
like adrenal glands was an interesting thing because I loaded up every guy I could with adrenal glands, and it made the difference in a couple charges, and I was like, oh, so that's interesting. But then there was like, I don't remember what it is, acid blood or whatever, and I'm like, why would I ever take this? Like, this hasn't done really anything this entire game. I would never pay points for this if I had to pay points for this. So I did find it very interesting to see like which biomorphs were really relevant and which ones weren't. And that kind of allowed me to learn if I were going to pay points, like which one of these are valuable enough for me to pay points for. And adrenal glands, honestly, that's a tough thing not to take after I had a game where like, I'd roll, oh, I'm short on a charge. Oh wait, adrenal glands, I'm in. So
no, that's even a bargain in the Codex now.
Yeah.
Points wise anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, totally worth it.
We have pretty much adopted power level as like what we are playing right now. And, much like any game, especially when you're not playing at a tournament level, and this is the distinction I always make. In a tournament, if I'm coming to a tournament, I am coming with the best beat face list I can find. My objective at a tournament is to win, period, hands down. That's really what my objective is.
No, I've never heard you sound so ruthless, Carl.
Oh, I'm hoping I have fun doing it, right? But ultimately, I'm not there to just throw some dice, drink some beer, and laugh. I'm trying to win.
Yeah.
When we play here, are we trying to win? Sure. Of course we're trying to win. But really, the focus for us is the social aspect.
It's the journey, right?
Yeah, and the drinking and the hanging out and laughing and then, hey, I won, or hey, I lost, but at least I, killed deer or whatever. And so like this campaign we've been going, for example, my last game, which we got to get caught up, but my last game I played against Brian from the Splinter Mind podcast, who honestly is a vastly superior player than I am. He's much stronger, he's much better and smarter when it comes to playing the game. But I was able to pull out a win, and it was just like, hey, cool, I didn't expect that.
That's one of the beauties of 8th edition, though.
Yeah.
I mean, you can just, I don't want to say you roll your way into victory, but, with the fact that every unit can interact with every other unit, you get to have just genuine games instead of landslides.
Yeah. And I mean, ultimately, like, he lost that game because he didn't come with like a huge beat face list. He came with a list of a variety of stuff that he thought, oh, this will be fun because I'm going to play with a variety of stuff. And honestly, he probably should have stayed out of my range, and he outranged me and should have just shot me off the table. But he got in close, and that was the mistake he made at that point, and that was that. But it was interesting because like the focus wasn't, and even though we're playing a campaign where victories and losses count against your team, like that wasn't really the focus. And we had a great game. I mean, it was a lot of fun. And the thing I really appreciate about 8th edition overall is that most of the games, a lot of stuff dies. It's very rare for us to have something super one-sided.
That's one of the things I tout about this edition is that you can't just make it happen. Now, objectively, do you feel that the power level way of gaming is more easily approachable than points?
I would say certainly for beginning players, for sure. Like if I were introducing somebody to the game, the power level system is the way to go. Let me use my wife as an example. She doesn't play nearly as much as we do, even though she has a beautiful Eldar army. She does play occasionally. 7th edition, like she just felt like, God, I'm confused. I can't figure out what's going on half the time. I'd sit there and help her, but 8th edition, like she locked onto it super fast. But when I showed her the power level way of building the army, she was like, yep, this is for me. I'm good. And so I think it's certainly great for people who want to quickly get into the game. It has made 8th edition more accessible. And I think, like you said earlier, that GW is kind of pushing the power level thing. I think that's very evident when you look at the data sheets for each of the units. Like the points for the units aren't on that page. But the power level sure is right up at the top there.
That's fair. That's a fair thing to say.
Yeah, and I think that is like, they're kind of like, hey, okay, I think they realized they stepped maybe a little too far with the Age of Sigmar launch and okay, just put out what you want. And this is their kind of middle ground on that. It is very popular in our area. Again, I get it's not for everybody, but for us, totally working. Like and
you're not talking about just like you and two other folks. You're talking about like a lot of people are playing this way.
Yeah, we in my campaign right now, I think we have 12 players. And that's just a subset of the number of players that we have available to us. And the only reason it's a subset is because the theme of the campaign is all Tzeentch versus Eldari. So like any flavor of Eldar and any flavor of Tzeentch, so 1,000 Suns or demons, that's it. And so it's limited based on the number of people we have that have those armies. But I mean, in general, when I have like a game day at my house, we're just like, hey, 100 power level games. Everybody's like, cool, and we'll show up with 20 people or whatever and play.
That's pretty neat. So, now you also mentioned you playing with the open war deck, and that's something that I'm typically always finding myself, practicing for a tournament, or people I game with want to play in tournament missions. Explain to me how you set up a game using the open war.
So for those who don't know, the open war deck is something like $15. And in my opinion, it's one of the best things that Games Workshop has come out with for 8th edition 40k. Typically, we are using 3 of the 5 types of cards. And the 3 types of cards that we're using are the deployment map, and there's something like 12 deployments or something like that. We use the objective cards, which are really your mission, and there's something like, 12 to 15 different objective cards. And then there is the twist card. And the twist card kind of adds like just another element to that objective. So, for example, the objective may be, place, and let me simplify this, but place 5 objective markers on the table. Each one is worth a point. The player who scores, who has the most objectives at the end of the game wins the game. I don't know that that's actually a mission in there, but let's just say it is.
Close enough.
The twist would be something like, okay, yeah, you have the 5 objectives, but every round, roll a d3, and a unit that you pick, a model you pick can heal that many wounds. So it's like, oh, okay, now my land raiders have just become way more survivable. And you find that changes the nature of the game so drastically, because you're like, well, now if I am going after a heavy vehicle this person has, I need to make sure I kill that thing. Otherwise, he's just going to start regenerating it next round. And I love the twists on it. I love how it just makes you think a little differently than normal. And we've had a fantastic time with
it. But there's different. There are multiple cards in these categories you're talking about using. So there's a lot. What's the variation? Like how many missions would you play out of this before you feel like you've worn it out?
So we've been exclusively playing with it for a while now, other than the campaign missions I've been creating. And which, by the way, are all basically inspired by the open war deck, and I'll get to that in a moment. But there's literally hundreds, if not thousands, of different missions that could present themselves from this. And now I've heard some people say, oh, well, this mission was really unfavorable for me, or this mission didn't work. I've yet to come across a combination of cards that didn't work. Certainly, sometimes it may give an advantage to the army on the table as opposed to the other one.
Well, I mean,
you just got to work with that.
People are going to play, and if they don't win like they think they're supposed to win, they're going to have a critique. I don't want to say complaint, but a critique about it. But you also encounter that in like pre-written missions too. I mean,
of course. It's incredibly hard. It always cracks me up when people are like, Games Workshop just write better rules. I'm like, well, if you're so good at writing rules, why aren't you designing games? Well, it is difficult to design a game. And I'm not saying that Games Workshop shouldn't write better rules
and stuff. I mean, come on. And when you are having like almost like a random encounter generator, who hasn't gamed in the past where a dragon only had 5 gold pieces or something? I mean, I don't know.
Right. No, I know what you're talking about.
When you're randomly generating something, it's not always going to be perfect and ideal. But we also that's kind of one of the points of casual play, is that it is an uphill battle for you sometimes, and then you just play again.
And the other thing I would say there, Paul, is that because we're so casual about it, like often we will deal out the cards and we're like, okay, this deployment zone, this mission, this twist. We're like, oh, we just played that twist 2 missions ago. Let's draw another one. Okay, and we just draw another one. So nobody's married to any particular like we're doing it, and the thing about the cards is you're doing it so quickly, developing the mission with the cards, that like you don't have a lot of time, or we don't really consider like, well, that's an advantage for me. So no, I don't want to draw another card. Like it just happens so quick that you're like, we just did this one, let's do a different one. Sounds good. All right, boom.
So you're up and playing. You've got your power level list. You're up and playing in a fairly short amount of time.
Oh, fraction of the time.
But it's got your rolling dice. So I'm not going to comment whether I think that's better or worse. You're rolling dice, and the game supports it.
It's not better or worse. It's just different, is what I would say. I think there is still a place for point games, absolutely. And I think if you're enjoying point games, play point games, But I will say, if you haven't tried Power Level and you've just read about it on the internet or heard people complain about it, give it a try, because you may be surprised. I've found often that I am surprised when I actually play things out. For example, there was a few years ago, I want to say it was near the end of 5th edition, they had come out with the way of playing that was just like tank heavy. It was like all tanks. Spearhead.
Yep, I know what you're talking about.
Okay, Spearhead came out. The rules for Spearhead came out in I almost said Dragon Magazine, in White Dwarf Magazine, and people were just immediately like, oh, this is GW just trying to sell tanks, and this is stupid, and blah, blah, blah. And a friend and I played it, and I was like, holy cow, this was like a really fun game. Like it was so different and so unique, and I thought this was a really fun way to play. I'm not saying that's the only way.
Well, I get focused. I mean, and I shouldn't say I'm not using that as in a complimentary way. I get narrowed. My focus gets narrowed on the way that I play the game, and
I think we all do.
And this perspective is interesting to hear about, and to know that it is thriving somewhere has encouraged me to at least look at it a little bit more. Because I mean, the people I game with are not all hyper competitive. I mean, some of them may want to be, but not all of them are. And and don't let me state that this can't be competitive, but it's a different way to approach the game.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. The other thing I would throw out there with the open war deck is there's 2 other cards that I haven't talked about, card types. One allows you to, I can't remember the name of the card, but if you have fewer points or power level than your opponent, you get this other card, which kind of gives you like a little bit of an advantage, which can kind of go to, hey, let's play 100 power level. Okay, great. By the way, I show up with 98 power level. We have not typically used those cards, and the one time I used that one, I found it to be almost a little too advantageous to the person who was lower in points. It was just like a little too much for me personally, so we don't typically use those cards. The other card is the sudden death card, and that's where you're playing twice the power level I'm playing. So I get if I can achieve this one thing, I instantly end the mission and I win. And I think that can make for some very interesting points. Because, I mean, you have double my army.
You can play that in an hour, though. So, I mean, when you're getting together and hang out with your buddies, if that's what you want to try, let's try this. Well, you haven't wasted a lot of time. You're probably 2 beers in at that point, and you just get to play again.
Or what if you're you got a new player playing against you, and you're like, maybe he doesn't have the funds you have, and he has an army that's half the size of yours, and he's like, I really want to play with all these things, and you're like, I want to play with all these things. Hey, let's do this. And here's the thing about those kinds of missions: it makes you think differently. There's a mission I really like in the open war deck, which is it used to be, we used to call it roll dice and tie. Right? In
Emperor's Will. Yeah.
Right.
Draw
you have an objective in your field. I have objective in my field. I have to defend mine and try to take yours. It used to always be the tie. This mission is
command and control. It gets called different things, but it's those singular objectives.
Now you have a singular objective. I have a singular objective. If at any time I control both objectives, I win the game instantly.
Oh, nice.
Same for you. So it's like all of a sudden the defense of your objective becomes way more important because at the end of my turn, or I think it's at the end of a game turn, if I control both objectives or you control both objectives, that's it. Game's over. Could be round 2, round 3, game ends. And you look at the board when you draw that card and you're like, oh boy, I really have to think about this. Whereas before, I used to just basically almost abandon my objective and throw everything at the opponent's objective and just say, even if I lose my objective, I'm going to hold theirs, but I stand a greater chance of kind of winning. Maybe I'll leave one unit in the backfield. Now it's like, nope. You can't do it.
It's a neat concept. With power level play, with the codexes coming out, have you found that it's still robust enough to keep up with the codexes? Are you noticing anything plus or minus for this style of play?
At this point, we haven't really noticed anything that's not insurmountable, right? I mean, we approach the game from hey, we want to make sure it's a communal thing and we're both having fun. That's not to say for example, Justin on my show is a tremendously good player and he's a better player than I am, hands down. So when I play a game against Justin, I'm like, okay, I got to really think about what I'm going to do to bring it. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to enjoy the game, and it doesn't mean he's not going to enjoy the game. But I just need to really know that, okay, I'm going to bring a tough army. I haven't run into any case where the Eldar Codex came out and now it's ridiculous. There have been a couple things where like Justin's, he's known for finding a good unit and then just picking a bunch of those units. For example, Obliterators is his latest thing with Chaos. Oh, you know what? From the Index to the Codex, the number of shots Obliterators got doubled. So, okay.
Let's just take more of them in.
So he drops 9 Obliterators in your backfield, deep striking with a Chaos Lord, so they're re-rolling misses, and then he just guns down your thing. And he's like, but it's fun. And I'm like, is it? I don't know.
Carl, that sounds fun.
For you.
That sounds pretty fun.
Maybe fun for you. So, my concept, and when he hears this show, because I know he listens to your show too, my concept is, oh, great, so I'm just going to mirror match him. Oh, you got 9 Obliterators? Hey, guess who else has 9 Obliterators with a Chaos Lord? Oh, you deep struck? Hey, I guess I'll deep strike too. How fun is that?
Oh, man. Well, dude, I'm really glad to hear about how you're enjoying 8th edition. I mean, I know that I know you started playing Heresy back in 7th.
Yep.
And I think as a meta alternative.
Yeah. I will say, for my perspective, 8th edition is the best of the 40k game I have ever played. I've had my most fun playing games of 40k, and I played a lot of 7th edition. I get that it was hard to get into for people because there was some kind of insurmountable, difficult, cliffs people had to clear to get into the game, especially newer players. And it was confusing and there were clunky aspects to it. 8th edition, I will tell you, I'm probably going to play more games of 8th edition than I ever played of 7th edition.
Yeah, I feel the same way. But with that in mind, though, with Heresy getting new rules, what is your stance on that? What's your take on what's going on with Heresy right now?
Right. So I've said this on my show. My Heresy army is basically shelved at the moment, and my Night Lords army that we were putting together for my wife is kind of on the back burner. Because 8th edition is so accessible, so easy to play, so much fun. When I went back and played a Heresy game, the minute close combat occurred, I was like, oh boy, this is really bogged down. Okay, so, I'm going to spread these wounds amongst all my Galvor back, and then, okay, here we go. And it's just clunky for the sake of being complicated. Now, that said, I have to tell you, I'm very excited to see what Forge World is doing with this new book that is coming out. I still think if you want to play a Heresy game, I fully anticipate you're going to be playing a longer game than you are going to be playing a 8th edition 40k game. I can't see how those rules don't take longer. They just absolutely do. There's just no doubt about it. That said, they are fixing a number of things. They fixed invisibility, they fixed a couple other things. So, I'll be honest, it was kind of funny to see Andy Hoare on the Twitch channel saying, well, Carl came over to Warhammer World and used invisibility on a 10-man squad of Galvor Bach, and they assaulted this
that
guy.
Was a little unbalancing.
And they were like, oh, and I'm like, hey, man, I'm just playing with the rules that were written. There was no terrain between me and a huge gun line, and I was like, I'm not walking into that. Here, you can't hit me. But I think they were aware that, hey, there were some problems. So I'm very curious to see what they've kind of cleaned up. I think it's still going to be that 7th edition gritty,
I mean, do you consider it in your mind? Do you consider it in your mind more of like almost like a historical game? I know it's historical sci-fi. If that makes any sense,
we call it future history.
Future history. All right,
right.
And do you just think that the backdrop of that game lends itself to being grittier and slower and grindier, and that's what people that play it want?
Okay. So I'm going to get a lot of heat for what I'm about to say. Here is my take on it. This may not be for everybody. Here's my take on it. I agree it is more of a future history or historical. It's based on like historical wargaming type things. Somebody just recently posted in our Facebook group, hey, what if I want to paint my World Eaters blue or pink or whatever? I don't remember what the color was. They are white and blue. Do you think that's okay? And I said, well, you know what? You do whatever you want. It's your thing. In my opinion, though, you should have if you want to have a variation of their color scheme, because in my mind, you're reenacting these armies these legions as they were, and it's not to say you couldn't say, well, this particular part of the legion wore pink armor. Yeah, okay, but to me, that breaks the narrative, right? So that's me. That breaks the narrative. I think that a lot of Horus Heresy gamers, and again, this is subjective. I think a lot of Horus Heresy gamers maybe read the rules of 8th edition, bought into the hype of it's dumbed down is the term I've heard used. I would disagree. It's not dumbed down. I'd say it's streamlined. And have a hard time coming to grips with things like no facing and that. I think a lot of Heresy gamers feel Horus Heresy and the 7th edition system for that game is more mature for more mature gamers and is complicated for a reason, and it means that it's smarter. And I'm going to wholeheartedly disagree with that. My personal take on it is that, as you know, Alan Bly passed away. Alan Bly was really the driving force behind the Horus Heresy game. He was an unbelievable talent with unbelievable amounts. Like, he was like the Stephen King of gaming. Like, he would write gaming books, just at an incredible rate.
It's amazing stuff too, and I'm not just saying that to say that out of respect. It is amazing stuff, worth reading.
Yeah. I thought I was a very creative person. I played Dungeons and Dragons for years. I played Call of Cthulhu. I played Warhammer. All these games. I thought I was pretty creative. Then I met Alan, and I was like, I'm not creative.
That's what
in comparison
really
to this. This is incredible. And his death, it throws a big, stick in the spokes of the Horus Heresy project. And I truly feel that eventually Horus Heresy will go 8th edition. I honestly believe that. I think that it is such a big investment on Games Workshop part that at this point, they can't half-ass this. They can't rush a Horus Heresy 8th edition supplement out. They don't want to
churn out all these
books. Black books.
Yeah.
Right. Look at they to be honest, they rushed out a lot of the Horus Heresy
Forge World Indexes.
Forge World Indexes, and we see some problems with those. They cannot afford to have those problems in Horus Heresy. It is too much of a cash cow for them. And I don't say that in a disrespectful way. I mean, it is a successful product for them. They cannot screw it up. And I think they recognize that. And I think they're like, you know what? It's better if we just keep it like this. We make a few adjustments. People like it. We'll keep it like this. We'll finish out the black books and have all the legions, have all the rules. And maybe down the line we switch it to 8th edition. And then if you want to play at 7th edition, you still have all the rules. You can play at 7th edition. If you want to, maybe there's an 8th edition conversion book or series that comes out or whatever. But I think it's folly for people to say 8th edition is dumbed down and stupid, and 7th, Horus Heresy is a much more mature game. It's simply not true. I think a lot of those players haven't actually played 8th edition. And I think that if they were to really give it a fair chance, they might find that, you know what? Okay, yeah, maybe I miss facing or whatever. Maybe I miss templates. Like, I miss templates from a nostalgic point of view. I don't miss them on the table.
I've got stacks of them sitting around. I'm not getting rid of them yet. I feel like, what if there's going to be some use for them?
Necromunda.
but how many do you need?
Yeah. Well, who knows?
True.
But I mean, I love templates. I love the concept. I love the deviation die. Like, I thought that was a cool mechanic. How many arguments did it cause? How much did it slow the game down? 8th edition is so much faster without those things. I agree, they were cool. Like, I miss them from a nostalgia point of view. When I'm playing 8th edition, I don't miss them.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. I think and that's what we kind of get set in our ways as gamers, and we are quick to dismiss things that fall outside of what we consider normal.
Change is hard. Yeah. And people have invested a lot of energy and time and money into Horus Heresy and into those 7th edition rules at this point. It's very hard to let go.
Oh,
I mean, there is a community effort.
Well, people love the idea of change, but they don't like to be, nobody likes to be changed.
Well, I like it when you change, Paul, but not when I have to change.
That's it. I mean, that's the core concept of pretty much anything you're going to encounter where change exists.
Right. And I mean, there's a community. There's like some members of the community that are actually like converting Horus Heresy to 8th edition, and it's a pretty amazing project that they're doing. I mean, you can search for it and you'll find it, but it's a pretty amazing. Like, they've put a lot of effort into it. It's never going to be truly accepted until Games Workshop actually does it, though.
Right.
And I still firmly believe that eventually it will happen. I think it's just too clunky to continue to maintain a separate system. First off, we got to have a separate Demon Codex as well. I don't know everything that's covered in the book coming out. I'm going to pick it up. I'm excited. I love the Horus Heresy game. But given my time, I'm probably going to play 40k instead.
I just want to Sanguinis model.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure it's coming. I mean, the models are fantastic. The lore is fantastic.
Everything about the game is cinematic. I mean, there's no getting around that.
Yeah. No, it's fantastically done. I have no complaints. I just, when you're talking bang for my buck for my time, and time is very limited for me lately, I'm just going to jump into a 40k game super fast with power level, and hey, we're up and running and let's play. And then, okay, I got to go. It took 2 hours, and that's that,
Yeah, dude, man. Well, Carl, thanks a lot for sharing your insight and your perspective on 8th edition and beyond. I know we talked about some other things here. It's really always nice to talk with you. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about before we get out of here? I wanted to make sure to direct people to your show, too.
Yeah, I mean, if you haven't heard of my show, it's called The Independent Characters. We've been around for quite a while. In fact, we're about to release a new episode in the next couple days, so probably right after Thanksgiving. Running a bit behind. I've been doing a lot of travel. Went out to Alan's memorial and that kind of stuff, and just my former partner Jeff's wedding and all kinds of things. So been, it's very busy. I don't know where I'm going with this. Let me just say,
you guys embrace the hobby, and if people are already aware of it, I mean, just listening to people that actually really enjoy playing the game, and talk about your experiences with the hobby, and I mean, you don't give a rundown of like news. You really are you're going over life in the hobby.
Yeah, I like to say our episodes are fairly timeless in the sense that the topics that we choose they're not based on, hey, this week this came out. Like we don't have any news segments like that. So, Paul, I mostly I just wanted to say, hey, I'm sorry I was supposed to be on your show last week, and like I said, things have been busy and I had to cancel last minute, and I apologize for that. So thank you for having me back on. I always love coming on your show. I think it's a fantastic show. When people ask, hey, I've listened to all the independent character shows, what can I listen to? I always say, hey, you should check out Forge the Narrative, because I really enjoy it. So thank you for having me on.
Yeah, we appreciate the support, and it's always good to talk to you, because I think that your perspective is so fresh and encouraging to folks to just to follow exactly what they want to get out of this hobby, because there's so many different aspects of it.
Yeah. I mean, play the game the way you want to play it, and I think 8th edition does that more than ever before. Like, you could just play however you want, and it's just super fun.
Awesome, man. Well, happy holidays. Hopefully I can catch up with you real soon.
Yeah, well, if not, we'll see each other at Las Vegas Open.
I'll be there. Can't wait.
All right, dude. Take care.
Bye-bye.